Hello everyone. Welcome to the What If Anime YouTube channel. Today, we are diving into an exciting new story that will take your imagination to the next level. Let's get started. What if Naruto and his sister arranged marriage? This is written by Mrapathy and link in the description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter 1. Hatred. The 12-year-old blonde boy stood in the street next to his mother as they watched a Hokage give his annual address to the people, stating he would remain in office for another year. The boy didn't care whether he was in office or not though. In all honesty, he really only came to glare at the man. He resented him, his father, if you could call him that. He was the reminder that the Yandere broke a vow, that he wasn't the bright shining star that the people made him out to be. His name was Naruto Uzumaki, and he was his bastard son. Minato Namikaze apparently once had extremely strong feelings for his mother, Kushina Uzumaki, feelings that we returned unfortunately. The daimyo though, saw Minato's power and wanted to marry him into his family, ensuring a powerful line in the future. An arranged marriage between Minato and the daimyo's daughter, Hana, formed. Then next thing you know, his mother was cast aside by the man. For years his mother had stood by and watched as Minato went through the very public engagement process, then marriage to the woman, crushing her heart and feelings. Apparently the village of Konohagakure didn't know of the evil, dark-sided monster the man possessed inside. Since he couldn't have Kushina, he thought no one should ever be allowed to have her. Every time the woman would have a suitor approach her, he would be scared off. Minato even went as far as to send them off on missions to die if the stubborn to take the hint that she was not to be touched. When people still pursued, he decided to give Kushina a mission. The mission was simple: she had to sleep with the yandere. She denied instantly, not wanting to be associated with something like that, but Konohagakure is a dictatorship. She ended up having no choice in the end. That night he was conceived, then a week or so later the yandere's wife conceived a child of their own, a little girl. Her name was Naruko, or as people called her, the princess of Konohagakure. Naruto didn't hate his half-sister, though she seemed to hate him oddly enough. Most of the kids their age hated as it seemed, even though they never attempted to get to know him really. They always teased him for being a bastard, called his mother a whore, and then got their asses whopped by him. Call him what they like, but he would not stand for anyone disrespecting his mother like that. She was the most important person in his life, and he would never allow someone to disgrace her again. So Naruto Uzumaki stood there with a scowl on his face, before making an irritated sound and walking away. He had heard enough of that man's pompous talk for the year, hell for his lifetime, but he knew he wouldn't escape it, even for the year. At the very least though, he could be done listening to his arrogant speech for the day. He had better things to do with his time, like train. He did have a personal mission after all, the one thing that he would make sure to do with his life. This one thing would change his life forever, but would also remove a blemish from the earth permanently. They arrived home first as usual. Kushina and Naruto didn't have a big home, but it was nice enough, even room for expansion if the time ever came. It had all the entertaining areas downstairs, then the bedrooms upstairs. No one ever really came over here though. Kushina was a bit of a workaholic, while Naruto didn't care for people much. Now and then some of his mother's old friends came by to visit, but it would only be for a couple hours tops. He usually avoided them since the last time his presence was noted his mother lost a friend. Currently Mikoto Uchiha and Kushina Uzumaki were sitting at the table catching up. Naruto was only 6 years old at this time, and didn't understand everything that had happened, or all the things that went on around him. He didn't know why he didn't have a dad. He didn't even know who his dad was. His mother knew, but she said he couldn't know until he got a little older. It sucked, but he had come to live with it. He was hoping on his 10th birthday it would be his present, to know and maybe even meet him, if he was alive of course. Naruto came back into the room carrying a pitcher of water carefully, his tongue sticking out the side of his mouth as he concentrated. He had filled it to the brim, so he was trying to get it to the table without spilling it all over the floor. It was a losing battle, but he got it to the table with minimal amount of spillage to the floor, so a quick mopping later, he poured his mom and Mikoto some more water. Kushina gave him a smile. "Thank you Naruto-kun, I appreciate you letting mommy talk to her friend." With a big bright beaming smile he looked at his mother, he then looked over at Mikoto. Being so young he sought after approval. He didn't understand why no one his age wanted to be his friend, so he sought older people. He thought of Kakashi Hatake as a friend or even an older brother. The same could be said about Anko Mitarashi, but a sister instead of brother. The glare Mikoto gave him told him he would find no companionship with her, though making him back down. He looked over at Kushina who was looking at her friend with an angered fire in her eyes. "Stop that Mikoto." The Uchiha matriarch looked over at her. "You shouldn't have kept him, you know what he is." The redhead's eyes hardened to a new degree. "Do not speak of that in front of him, or I will hurt you. He is innocent in all of this, never choosing a second of it. Leave him alone." The woman rolled her eyes that took a drink of her water. It didn't stop there though. He was 6 and curious. "What do you mean what I am?" "I am just like everyone else." Naruto gave a wide smile, making his mother smile at him as she took on a caring smile. Yes, you are, sweetie. Now go get your shoes on, and we will go out for dinner tonight, okay? I will even take you to Ichiraku since you love it so much. His eyes grew bright, then he ran off to get his shoes. Kushina expected him to stay in his room to put them on, but he had come back down the stairs. He was leaning against a wall as he struggled to put them on. He was too anxious for the food to sit down to actually put them on properly. As he leaned there though, he heard Makoto speak again. You should have aborted him when you found out you were pregnant, Kushina. You know that Minato only came up with that mission because he doesn't want anyone near you. Since he couldn't have you, no one else could. That was the clear message he put across the board. He even made sure of that he squirted his bastard son into you, hoping for another layer of defense. Though he couldn't see his mother, he could hear the anger in the tone of her voice. The Yondaime is the bastard, not Naruto. He may have the genetics of Minato, but Naruto is already a better man than he is. Makoto rolled her eyes again. Kushina, I say this because I care, but you were stupid to keep him. It was checkmate the second you kept him. Now he keeps men away from you because they know he is a bastard. They think you're a whore who doesn't even know who impregnated her. It's not too late. We could have Yamanaka wipe his memory clean. He wouldn't even be able to recognize you. You could leave the village and be free. There was a long pause. Unknown to Naruto, his mother was giving a death glare. The boy thought maybe she was considering it though. Then Naruto came around the corner. Mommy, you want to leave me? Do you not want to be my friend either? Kushina looked at her son with wide eyes. Naruto, how long were you standing there? He just rubbed his arm. It was his body language showing that he was uncomfortable, as if he didn't belong here. Kushina quickly stood and rushed over to him before enveloping him in a hug. Sweetie, don't ever think that I want to leave you. Mommy will always be your friend. Mommy will always be there for you, no matter what. The boy slowly hugged her back while Makoto glared at them. Fool. Kushina stood throwing a kunai at her head all in one swift fluid motion. Get out of my house. Now. I see you near here, my son, again. I will kill you, Makoto. The woman left after that, and Kushina fell to her knees crying. She had lost what was once a dear friend. Naruto stood behind his mother, watching her weep. That was when he decided on his personal mission in life. He would kill Minato Namikaze, even if it was the last thing that he did. The blonde boy huffed as sweat dripped down his face and body. He stood up straight and looked at the destroyed training grounds. He was getting stronger, rapidly, thanks to his mother's most recent gift to him. She had given him the Kyuubi. Since she was in Uzumaki, she was able to survive it leaving her body, but was weakened for weeks. He had taken care of her, but she had given it to him to take care of him. Kushina was surprised to see that Naruto had struck a deal with the Kyuubi. He could use some of the Nine Tails chakra without risk, but he wouldn't tell her how he did it. He had also awakened something from his Namikaze genes, something not even Minato had done. Apparently it skipped a couple generations, but he had awoken a Kekai Genkai from deep within the genetics. It was a blend of lightning, wind and water. Together it formed a storm style. It was a Kekai Genkai believed to be dead, so he was allowed to read books on it. People didn't realize he had it, and he planned to keep it that way for a while. The only person that he knew he needed to tell was his mother. After everything she has done for him, she deserved to know. That was something he was planning to reveal to her tonight though. When he fished his self-training, he let out a long sigh, then looked around. His mother would be home soon. He went and took a quick shower before coming back downstairs to make them dinner. It was a small meal, just fish and ramen, but it was good enough, he assumed. Just as he finished setting the table, his mother came home with a friend, Kurenai Yuhi. She had never shown any hostility towards him. Actually, she had always been pretty nice to him in all honesty. It was just that past experiences made him wary of people other than the three closest to him, Kushina, Kakashi and Anko. Not saying anything, Naruto pulled out another dish and made Kurenai some food as well before giving his mother a kiss on the cheek. Nodding at both of the women, he silently left, going to a different room to eat his own dinner. Both of the women looked at his retreating form a bit saddened. Kurenai looked over at the red-headed woman. He still has a problem opening up to people, huh? Kushina nodded her head in a slow fashion, her eyes not leaving the retreating form of her son. She looked back at her red-eyed friend. Ever since Makoto said those harsh words that he heard, he just doesn't trust people. At times he doesn't trust anyone, even me, which I am concerned about for the future, honestly. Anyways, there are things that he knows and does that he won't give me answers for. With a small sigh, her friend then looked at the food he had put on the table for them. I suppose he had made this food to eat with you then. The Uzumaki woman nodded her head. Yes, he makes me dinner quite often. No matter what, he goes out of his way to do it today though, since we see him. The boy can be really sweet to those that he wants to be, it's just that it is a very small list. It was no secret to anyone in their circle what Minato had done. No one else believed them since he was the Honorable Minato Namikaze, hero of the Third Ninja War and the Yondaime Hokage. He would never order a woman to sleep with him other than his wife. No one believed them even now, though Naruto looked so much like the man, it still fell on deaf ears. Kurenai looked at her friend. I feel bad for coming over now. Kushina shook her head. No, he holds no resentment for it. Actually, he often encourages me to bring my friends over. He will just do what he did now. He will go to another room, and if he needs to speak to me, he will wait in the other room until my friend leaves. I hope that when he gets his team placement tomorrow he starts to open up a bit. Her friend nodded her head. I heard that Asuma got him. The red-headed woman nodded her head. Unfortunately, he also got Naruto though. I think Minato is just trying to taunt the boy a bit now. Do you know who the other person is? Shaking her head no. Kurenai blew on some of the ramen before she ate it. Those were the only 2 genin that were leaked. I don't even know who my team is. I suppose Minato probably let it slip out. Kushina nodded her head. Then they ate a bit, talking about this and that, exchanging what gossip they had heard. After about an hour Kurenai left the home, and Naruto came back in with his plate and bowl. He put them in the sink to clean them, then came to table and sat across from his mother. She gave him a smile. How was your day, Naruto-kun? With a shrug the boy looked at her then away as he started to rub his hands together nervously. Kushina had studied his body language, seeing as that was the easiest way to get any information from him, so that she always knew when something was going on. Kushina just stared at him, getting a more concerned look on her face. Naruto-kun, what is it? The blonde teen looked at her then sighed. I have things to tell you, Mom. Things I should have told you about right away. She moved her dishes out of the way and watched him carefully. He looked straight at her mother then sighed. Kurama and I have made our deal. I have full access to his power at any time, but too much would still hurt me. He agreed under the condition that I share my senses with him. He can hear, see, smell and feel what I feel. There is something else though. Naruto took a deep breath then came clean. I have the storm release. His mother just stared at him for a minute, a bit unsure. The storm release, as in the lost Namikaze Kekai Genkai. I thought that the bloodline died out generations ago though. He nodded his head. I am not very proficient in it yet, but I have started to scratch the surface of its power. It's hard to control and even harder to master. I don't know why it stayed dormant in the genetics so long. Maybe it was Kurama who drew it out. All I know is that I have that power. The boy looked at his mother. You have given up a lot because of me. I felt that I should at least be honest with you. Naruto went to stand to leave and go to sleep, but she grabbed his hand making him sit back down. Kushina was looked at him. Why did you hide this from me? The boy looked at her. Well, Kurama told me not to tell you. He said you would be jealous about the fact I made the deal so quickly, when he never made it with you. Kushina made an irritated sound, then muttered something under her breath about a cheeky brat and furry bitch. Naruto couldn't help but to smirk at that, knowing that it meant that Kurama had been right in saying she would be jealous. Kushina looked back at him. What about the storm release? He paused on that one and he rubbed his arm. Kushina knew that body language all too well. He had a good guess where his reasoning lied for this one. Naruto looked at the table. Because I got it from him. I don't want to remind you of him. I feel like I already do with how close in resemblance I am to him. Kushina sighed, then walked around the table to kneel in front of him. Naruto-kun, you stupid noble little boy. I will always know that he is your father, but you will always be the better man. Now, I need to tell you something as well. Nodding his head he sat there waiting while Kushina bit her bottom lip. Your half-sister Naruko, she is going to be on your team. Your 2 names were the only ones leaked, though I am assuming Minato did that deliberately. You will be on Asuma's team. Naruto's lip twitched in irritation. He really didn't mind the girl, it was just that she reminded him of his father, though she could be quite irritating when she tried. After a couple of calming breaths he looked at his mother and nodded. I will be fine, Kasan. I'm going to get some sleep. Good night. He kissed her on the forehead, then went to bed to get some sleep since tomorrow would be an extremely trying day. He knew Asuma a bit, and he knew that the man would test them, that he would not be easy of them either. Asuma wasn't as firm of a believer in teamwork as the others. It was valuable, but Asuma was more interested in making sure they were strong enough to protect themselves and each other. He had always said that it would develop naturally over time, as the 3 got to know one another and formed bonds. Naruto laid on his bed then closed his eyes slowly. Soon, asshole. Soon I will make you pay for what you have done. Chapter 2. The Yondaime. The graduating class sat there silently as the Yondaime spoke about them from to podium. Their parents and invited guests out in the stands, smiling at them with proud faces, and man's eyes were scanning them silently as he finished his typical speech of how they were the future. He was honestly wondering how the next generation was going to turn out. Then the Yondaime's eyes stopped on a mop of blonde spiky hair. The eyes of that teenager were staring at him with hatred burning brightly in the eyes. That made him smirk. He was usually stoic, but the hatred in his bastard son's eyes made him smile a bit. Naruto just glared at him some more. He wished he had the power now to just kill the bastard. Unfortunately he didn't, not yet at least. On the plus side of things, he had the tools to do it once he could control them. The Kyuubi, his shield from his mother, making him untouchable for the time being, not until he could find another host to try and take it from him. The Namikaze bloodline, when he chooses to reveal it, his sword. It would prove who his father was, that his mother never lied. Also, it was bound to piss the fucker off. He wasn't sure which one of those two options he was more excited about. For the time being though, he would resort to just showing up his half-sister. If he was the best genin, then it would upset the yondaime for the time being. Minato stood on the podium and started to have a devious smirk. Starting this year I want to introduce a new idea, in a show of strength to inspire the rest of the class. I want the top male and female genin to spar one another. Haruka, who were this year's top two. Haruka, being someone who knew the truth, just glared a bit. They both knew the answer, and they both knew that he was doing this to rile up a certain blonde Jinchuriki, Naruto Namikaze and Naruto Uzumaki. Minato nodded his head, playing the role that he didn't know full well what he was doing. Would the two of you please come stand before me? His daughter instantly rushed down the stairs as Naruto stayed sitting, shocking a lot of people. Everyone just looked at him as the yondaime stared, irritation in his eyes by the boy's blatant insubordination. Naruto Uzumaki, come down here. Or will I perhaps have to speak to your mother again? All of the parents in the stand started to look over at Kushina as she looked at Naruto. The boy's upper lip twitched and he clenched his hands into a fist before he stood silently. He looked over at his mother, who gave him a soft smile, before his eyes swiftly came back to Minato. Naruto headed down the stairs and stood next to Naruko, who was looking at him questioningly. No one ever tried to defy her father, so seeing a genin resist was a phenomenon to her. Minato smiled at them, then looked at Naruto directly. Glad you decided to listen. Perhaps I will talk to your mother about your manners though. After all, a Hokage is like a father to everyone, isn't he? Those who knew the truth were disgusted by the man's obvious shot at Naruto, though the blonde teen boy seemed to ignore that part. The part that didn't sit well with him was the comment referring to Kushina. His eyes turned crimson for a moment, something the yondaime didn't miss. Naruto continued to glare at him. You go near my mother, I will kill you. Everyone gasped a bit as he glared at him with anger in his eyes, posture and voice. The yondaime stared at him. It doesn't matter, once was enough anyway. His shoulder twitched in anger. He was about to move when Asuma appeared before them. The bearded Sarutobi just looked over at Minato. Since they are both on my team, I would rather you not do this, Yondaime-sama. Perhaps give Naruto someone else to fight, if you are so desperate to see him fight someone. Minato glared at him, then made an irritated sound as he leaned on the podium. I am pretty sure I am the Hokage, not you, Asuma. This fight is something that is going to happen no matter what. Whether you like it or not makes no difference to me. The Sarutobi looked back at Naruto, then back at Minato. You sure you want to send your daughter against him after you riled him up like this? Good possibility that he will end up seriously hurting her. The Hokage looked over at his daughter, who nodded her head. She wants to fight him, and any child of mine gets what they want. The Jinchuriki's hands twitched again at yet another blatant shot at him. He just stared at Minato, an evil smile coming to his lips. I will get my wish someday too. The blonde Hokage looked at him. What is your dream? The sinister smile on his face getting even larger as his eyes locked with Minato's. To kill the man that hurt my mother. I am going to make him suffer, humiliate him, and then I will kill him slowly. I will not let him have the mercy of the swift death. He must suffer for what he has done. Everyone in the small-knit circle that knew the truth stared at Naruto. He had never told someone that. Not even Kushina knew what he had been planning this whole time. Her eyes were locked on the back of his blonde head. Naruto and Minato continued to do their little stare down, until the yondaime started to laugh. Your mother is actually a very strong kunoichi. So if there was someone who was able to hurt her, he is way stronger than you can ever dream to be, boy. The sinister smile did not waver. We will see about that now, won't we? Asuma stared at Naruto, then bent down by him to whisper in his ear. She isn't him, Naruto. Remember that when you fight. The sensei to both of them patted him on the shoulder, then nodded to Naruto before they both took their starting spots. Haruka moved to standing between them and looked at both as he lifted his hand, then brought it down. Naruko was the first one to move and reached back and then pulled out multiple kunai, her focused eyes never leaving the other blonde. Naruto just stared at her, wondering what it was the princess was planning. Haruko flashed at the blonde boy, then threw one of her kunai at him. She had always been praised as being fast for her age. She honestly thought it would be an advantage, that he wouldn't be able to track her. To her surprise though, Naruto caught the kunai she threw between his fingers with obvious ease. He rose his left eyebrow, then looked at her. I must admit I expected more. She was about to yell at him to shut up for that comment when he suddenly just disappeared in a flash, delivering a hard knee into her stomach. Her eyes rolled back as all the air left her body. As she was falling, she gasped for air, trying to get her bearings. That was when Naruto grabbed her hair and pulled her head back, putting her ear next to lips. Naruto put the kunai to her throat. Burning her to face the yondaime, he gave an even more sinister smirk than he did earlier. He slowly pushed the kunai in enough to start to draw blood from her throat. Naruto looked at his half-sister, then whispered into her ear, look at him, your so-called father. I could slice your throat here and now. I wouldn't lose a second of sleep over it either. That doesn't look like he would either. He is staring at me, not you. I am where his concern lies. You thought you were so damn important through the academy, everyone treated you so fucking well, but no longer. It's time you grew up, you spoiled little bitch. Pushing the kunai in a little deeper, making the blood go down her neck without the risk of a kill. Just yet Naruto continued to stare at Minato. Naruko's eyes were shifting between Naruto and then her father. She had noticed that the other blonde was right. He was looking at Naruto, saying the only reason that made sense to her. He is looking at you because if you kill me, he will kill you. Naruto laughed a bit. He can't touch me. He forced me into this fight after trying to provoke me. He knew that I would be angry, yet he still let you fight. Honestly, he practically offered you up as a sacrifice just to see where my power truly lies. Your precious father isn't who you all think he is. He is a cynical bastard who cares only about himself. Remember this lesson, Naruto Namikaze. If I have to reteach it, you will die. But the swift motion, he pulled out the kunai and delivered a swift chop to her neck, making her full unconscious. Naruto looked at the kunai, then threw it next to her into the ground before glaring at the yondaime. The man just glared back. Everyone is dismissed. Meet your senseis at the designated areas. Hana, make sure our daughter is okay. The woman rushed forward to Naruto and knelt down by her to see if she was okay. Naruto finally broke his stare down with the yondaime to look at Hana. She isn't hurt, well, not badly at least. She was not ready for a fight with me, so I took it easy on her. I suggest that you get your bastard-ass husband to train her properly before she goes into the field. You're not a ninja, so you wouldn't know, but women in this field aren't killed right away if captured, they are used. Unless you want this to happen to your precious daughter, then you may want to get her properly trained. Hana looked at him with confusion. Why do you care? I thought that you hated our family. Naruto looked at her calmly as his mother came over and put her hand on his shoulder, reassuring him to not do anything reckless. They were not a part of his little war, they were just innocent bystanders, people who shouldn't get caught up in this. Naruto sighed. The one I hate is your husband for things that he has done. Eventually I will have my vengeance for what he has done as well. The blonde teen turned to leave with his mother when Hana spoke up again. What did he do to you to make you hate him so much? Kushina looked at Naruto with concern as he stared forward. He didn't do anything to me. It's someone else I am doing this for. But that the boy walked out of the auditorium, leaving a concerned Kushina there with the other members of the Namikaze family. He started heading to where Asuma had told their team to meet. Hana looked over at Kushina, who was clearly concerned for her child. It's for you, right, Kushina-san? For what Minato did to you? The red-headed woman looked over at her in surprise. You know. Hana nodded her head. I had my suspicions. One look at Naruto, and you know who his father is. When you tried to tell people, it just confirmed what I believed. It was no secret that Minato had feelings for you that bordered on obsession. Rolling her eyes, Kushina scoffed at the comment. Crossed that line a while back. The other woman smiled a bit. True, but by the time I even had my suspicions, I was already pregnant with Naruto here. I think that her whole existence to Minato is just his way to provoke Naruto. You named your son, he named her Naruto. Naruto tells you he wants to be a ninja, he tells Naruko she has to be a kunoichi. He puts them on the same team, he tells her how she is so much better than him, and then she acts like it. Hana let out a long sigh as she stroked her daughter's hair. I can't leave him because of my father, but Naruko can still get away from him. That is the only positive side to this, so what Naruto warned me about, can that really happen out there? The redhead nodded her head. Unfortunately, it can sometimes from the person you least expect. I hated every second that I had to sleep with him, but I do not hate what I got from it. To be honest, I felt empty for a while when I was cast aside by Minato, then again when no one wanted to approach me to date me. I didn't know what Minato was doing at that point in time, then he gave me the mission and made me sleep with him, and that gave me Naruto. I love my son as much as you love your daughter. The only unfortunate thing is who their father is. Kushina came over and then channeled some chakra into her hand and pressed it to Naruko's neck, making it so she woke up. The blonde teen girl looked around then at Kushina and Hana. Hana gave Kushina a smile as Naruko sat up. Ugh, my neck, what happened? Giving her a soft smile while continuing to stroke her hair, her mother responded to her question. Naruto knocked you out during your match, sweetie. We are going to have to find you someone other than Asuma to train you. Perhaps Kushina-san would be willing to help you out. That made the redhead look at Hana. I'm not sure that is a good idea. Naruko doesn't really care for Naruto too much. None of the kids in their age group really do. I think that it is in everybody's best interest to ask another. Maybe Anko no. She would say no too. Hana looked at her then bowed in front of the red-headed kunoichi. Please Kushina-san, I would be very appreciative if you did. I don't want anything to happen to my little girl while she is in the field. Kushina rubbed her brow, then sighed as Hana straightened back up. Fine, just she needs to be nice to Naruto when at my home. There is also the fact she cannot insult him in my presence. Is this understood? Naruko and Hana both nodded their heads. Also, Minato is not allowed near my home or son, for reasons that you know. The black-haired woman nodded her head, then looked at her daughter. You understand all of this, right, Naruko? She nodded her head, then the older women nodded their heads, and Hana spoke up, "Run along to your meeting, Naruto. Your other teammates should already be there." She nodded her head before running off in the same direction Naruto had disappeared earlier. When Naruto arrived, she saw that her teammates and sensei were waiting for her. Asuma was standing there smoking a cigarette with a somewhat bored-looking expression on his face. Her other teammate, Shikamaru Nara, was laying on the ground and looked to be asleep. The last member of her team was sitting in the tree looking straight at her. Naruto looked right back at him, then her eyes went over to her new sensei. "Sorry I am late, Asuma-sensei. I was knocked out in my match earlier." Nodding his head in understanding, he responded to her, "It wasn't fair for him to put you against Naruto, especially after toying with the boy." Naruto said nothing as he sat in the tree looking at her still before he jumped down to the ground. He looked over at his half-sister. "I am sorry that I knocked you out. I figured it was better than killing you though." Naruto nodded her head at him, then looked at Asuma. "So how are we going to be tested, Asuma-sensei?" He shook his head. "No point in testing you. I know that you all are good enough to be genin. Naruto is a powerhouse, you're strong and fast, and Shikamaru, while being lazy, is a genius in his own right. If I test you one-on-one, then it won't prove anything I don't know. If I test you how other jounin do as a team, it would just make it so Shikamaru develops the strategy while you two execute. Nothing I don't know already, so there is no point in wasting the time or energy. You're all free to leave. I will see you tomorrow when we start doing our D-ranked missions." Naruto nodded her head, then looked to see Naruto was already gone as well as Shikamaru. She looked over at Asuma. "Asuma-sensei, can I ask you some questions?" He nodded his head as he took another puff of his cigarette. "Naruto, what's up with him?" The Saratobi looked at her, then exhaled the smoke. "It is not my place to say. If you really want to know, then you will have to put forth that effort and make a bond with him one way or the other. Though to be honest, he really doesn't open up to people other than his mother. Hell, he doesn't even really get along with others. Walking poster boy for doesn't play well with others. If you are able to somehow forge a bond with him, you have done what many think to be impossible. He only has one goal in his life, it seems, and he seems to expect that will also be the end to his life." The blonde teen looked at him, then sighed with a nod. "I will have to do it the hard way. Maybe feminine charms will work on him." Asuma rose an eyebrow and was about to tell her she couldn't when he remembered she didn't know. With a sigh, he turned and left, taking another long drag off of his cigarette. Poor boy will probably fall for it too. Since no woman has ever shown interest in him, he won't know what to do. Let's hope that he doesn't cross that line. For whatever reasons he may do it. Chapter 3. The mental game. After a month of D-ranked missions, all of Team 13 was itching for something better, something that was more challenging. Naruto had tried for a while to get to know the enigma that was Naruto Uzumaki. Even when she would go over to the Uzumaki clan residence for her private training with Kushina, she had been very persistent for quite some time at this point to get to know the young man, but to no avail thus far. Since when she would show up, he typically retreated to his room and did his best to avoid her. She had even asked Kushina for something that would help her kind of break the ice. Naruto stood there panting heavily, feeling sweat coming from places that she didn't even know produced sweat. She never expected these private sessions to be this hard for her. Maybe he was right. Perhaps she did live a somewhat spoiled life. She looked up at Kushina to see the disapproving look that she was being given. Kushina shook her head as she looked at Naruto. "You're already tuckered out, Naruto. That isn't even a warm-up for Naruto, barely even light stretching for him." The young woman stood up straight while looking at her sensei, taking a deep breath. "Naruto, is there any way that I can get closer to him, Kushina-san? We are teammates and everything, but he doesn't seem to want to do anything with, well, anyone really." Kushina looked at the girl, softly biting her lower lip while debating mentally about this. Naruto didn't know about the fact she was Naruto's half-sister. She didn't know how much the boy truly hated their father, though most people knew he had a very strong disliking of the Yondaime. Everyone seemed to sum it up to the obsession the man used to have with Kushina. Releasing her lip, she then let out a heavy sigh. Nothing that you care about coincides with Naruto's. He cares for few things, and what they are is not something that you care about or want to know about. Looking at her with confused and curious eyes, it was becoming more and more clear that the girl wanted to know about him. The whole dark and mysterious thing was driving her insane. Kushina knew that the girl was becoming too curious for her own good, though. She was hoping to steer her away, if only a little. If the girl had any sense, then she would know to keep away from Naruto, but she was her sensei, and knew that wasn't really something that was going to happen. The redhead was worried that her son was getting lost further and further into his own darkness and obsession to kill Minato. The red-headed Uzumaki sighed again, then looked at her pupil. "Okay, Naruto, let's go again. If within the next couple months you are able to improve drastically, and I do mean drastically, I will do what I can about getting Naruto to train with you. That may be a way to get him to open up a little bit, though I make no guarantees that it will work." The girl nodded her head happily, then went back to training with Kushina with a newfound vigor. This was something that the elder Kunoichi definitely took notice of as well. She had yet to impress Kushina to the point that she got to train with Naruto, except in team training. During that time he usually only did taijutsu and weapons training with Asuma. The two had a discussion at the start of their team, and had come to the agreement that when they practiced ninjutsu he was permitted to train on his own elsewhere. Naruto sighed as they sat outside the Hokage's office to get their next mission. Team 7 was in there getting their mission at the moment. After that it would be their turn. Though unfortunately, every time they went in there they left with an irate blonde Uzumaki. She didn't understand it, but her father would make little comments that, though to her they seemed meaningless, but would make Naruto extremely upset. Their sensei would glare at her father, then he would grip Naruto's shoulder, seeming to be an attempt to keep him calm-like state, though not truly calm. The young blonde woman looked over at the other blonde on their team. He already looked irritated about the fact that they were here, which was probably going to be an issue. The large white door opened as a silver-haired jounin came out with Sasuke Uchiha, Kiba Inuzuka and Sakura Haruno behind him. Kiba did what Kiba always did, giving her a not-so-subtle wink at her, making her roll her eyes. Sasuke glared at Naruto like he always did, though the blonde Uzumaki just flat-out ignored him. Apparently the Uchiha saw Naruto as a rival, while Naruto seemed to mainly just see him as a nuisance. Sakura just kind of stared at Sasuke with this weird form of admiration. To be honest, Naruto never understood what all these people saw in Sasuke. He was always so self-centered and arrogant. Turning her attention back to the doors, she saw as her mother came out of the office and greet them all with a kind-hearted smile. Team 13, please come on in. The yondaime is ready for you all. Everyone stood except for Naruto, who was glaring at the door. Asuma looked over at him. Naruto, you have to physically come into the office. Just stay in the back and ignore him, don't let him beat you mentally. The blonde teen just looked at Asuma for a second, clearly unhappy with the idea. In the end though, he wordlessly stood up and moved into the office with the rest of his team. Naruto stood in the back of the office as the rest of Team 13 stood at attention in front of Minato. The yondaime's eyes scanned over them, then focused on his bastard in the back of the room. There he saw the familiar scorn of hatred in Naruto's eyes, making him smirk as it always did, bringing him a sick sense of pride. His wife stood off on the side with a disapproving look as Minato continued to stare at the young man. All of Team 13 needs to be at attention in front of me and be the respectful subordinate you should be. It seems though that you are lacking someone in this lineup, Asuma. The teen in the back just glared, then pushed himself off of the wall to come stand next to Naruto. Minato smiled at him. Isn't that better, Naruto? You should always show respect to the Hokage. Like I said at the graduation ceremony a month ago, it's almost like I am a father to you as the Hokage. You respect your father, right? Oh shoot, sorry about that. Naruto clenched his fists as he stared at him before his almost trademark sinister smile appeared. You should be happy I am not your son, since when I get stronger, I am going to kill whoever my father is. The yondaime stared at him, then let out a rather loud laugh. Oh really? Just how are you going to do that, Naruto? The teen just laughed. I have my ways. I have gifts from both of my parents that are more than anyone can fathom. He best be ready when the time comes, because when his day of reckoning is upon him, I at least want a challenge. Staring at him for a moment, wondering if there was a bluff there, Minato smirked. After a moment of contemplation he let out another chuckle. That's interesting, Naruto. Does your mother know about this dream of yours? Said teen just nodded his head. She does, and she isn't going to do anything to try and stop me. If I didn't know better, then I would think that she actually supports me as well as hopes I succeed. I mean, after all, I may be the bastard's son, but we all really know who the bastard is in that scenario. Minato looked straight at him, no longer smirking after the shot from Naruto. Well, I know that if you were actually my son, and were plotting such a thing, I would tell you that if you try, I will put you in the ground, and that I will be merciless. They both just glared at each other before Naruto unclenched his fist as he just stood there silently. Asuma looked at the boy, then back at Minato, who had a victorious smirk on his face. Asuma, I believe that it is time to truly test your team with a C-rank mission. Don't you agree? The Sarutobi nodded his head, followed by Minato tossing him a scroll with mission details. Minato's eyes shifted a pointed gaze on his daughter. Naruto, you will do good on this mission. I have been gracious enough to let you train with Kushina despite her reputation as a whore. Minato looked over at Naruto, who now had crimson eyes with bold fists. That confident smirk returned to the yondaime's face. Prove to me I was not mistaken in letting you do that. His daughter nodded her head, though she didn't appreciate her father calling Kushina a whore. The Uzumaki matriarch had been nothing but kind to her throughout their entire time together. Everyone turned to leave the office, everyone but Naruto, that is. He just kept staring, then Asuma went to touch his shoulder. Naruto grabbed the man's wrist and, not realizing how truly angry he was, broke it. He just glared at Asuma with crimson eyes as the man cringed in pain. Do not touch me without my permission. When he released Asuma's wrist, he turned and walked out of the yondaime's office. Shikamaru had rushed to try and help Asuma, but Naruto had seen the crimson eyes Naruto had showing as he left. She looked back over at her father. His smile didn't look like it could get any bigger. Asuma on the other hand shuned to the hospital so that he could get a quick fix on his wrist, not wanting to impede the mission for his genin. Unfortunately, while he was there, the doctor informed him his right hand would have to be in a cast for a couple of days. Apparently there was some sort of malicious chakra left over that was affecting his mystic palm technique. Naruto on the other hand just arrived back at the Uzumaki compound and slammed the front door hard enough to startle Kushina. She had been happily reading on the couch prior to her son's abrupt entry into the home. She could feel the kai leaking off of Naruto. Sweetie, what's wrong? He was still so infuriated that he had begun to shake with anger, his eyes still crimson, wave after wave of anger pouring out of him. Kushina looked at his eyes before coming over to him. What did he do? Continuing to just stand there, his anger still obvious as it seemed to be dominating his body. He called you a whore. Kushina looked at her son, then gave a small sigh. Sweetheart, you have to stop letting him get to you. You have to be able to beat him in the mental arena as well as the physical arena, Naruto. He is strong physically, but he has a strong resolve as well. If he gets in your head, he will win. He just looked at her before his eyes slowly turned back from crimson to azure. He stared at his mother for a bit, then nodded and headed to his room to grab his gear for his mission. When he had everything, he came and gave Kushina a kiss on the cheek. Thanks, Kasan. I should be back in a couple of days. She nodded her head before he left the house, starting his trek to the gate to meet with his team, trying to get to a somewhat calm state while heading there. He also knew that he needed to apologize to Asuma. That was if his sensei was there, and there wasn't going to be a fill-in. Since his temper had flared the way it did, he had hurt someone that had never hurt him, someone that he didn't mean to hurt. That made him feel like he was actually Minato's son. It was a feeling that made him feel like vomiting, to be completely honest. The only relation he wanted from that man was the storm release. Naruto arrived last for their team, though that wasn't all that surprising given his talk with his Kasan. Judging by how long they appeared to have been standing there, though the talk clearly took more time than originally believed. Naruto also noted that Asuma was there, though his wrist was in a cast. Naruto walked up to his team, then looked at Asuma. I am sorry about that, Asuma-sensei. I don't have the best control over my anger still. The bearded Saratobi nodded his head at him. It's fine, Naruto. Regardless of it all, I shouldn't have tried to move you while you were out of control. Just next time I try to help, let me keep my wrist in operation. Doctor says I can't use my wrist for at least a couple of days, because of some special chakra residue that is still in there. Naruto looked at him, then nodded his head before stepping in front of where his teammates could see. His eyes turned crimson, then he touched Asuma's wrist, absorbing the remaining Kyuubi chakra. Naruto's eyes turned back to azure, then looked at Asuma. Sorry again, sensei. Asuma nodded his head, then motioned for his team to start through the gate. As they headed along the path, Asuma looked at his team. Okay, our mission shouldn't be too hard. We are just going to the land of tea to get a message from their daimyo. After that it's straight back to Konohagakure. The blonde teen girl on the team looked over at Asuma. Why is this a C-ranked mission? It seems so simple. Her sensei just smiled at her curiosity. C ranks aren't usually too difficult, Naruto, especially if the mission is able to be given to a genin squad. Officially a C-ranked mission runs the risk of being harmed, though it's not too high. Since there is always the chance of foreign ninja becoming involved with foreign countries, something outside the border of the land of fire will typically be at least C-ranked. The lazy genius on their team then spoke up. T-country doesn't have a shinobi village. This just seems like a very troublesome walk to me. That made their sensei laugh then, shocking everyone that was there. The other genin on their team spoke up. If there is no shinobi village, it makes it a better safe haven for those who have fled their villages. Less chance of recognition. On the flip side, bounty hunters would probably be higher there. Bounty hunters often have egos that exceed their skills though, so it makes sense that foreign ninja would be there. Now you're a foreign ninja with a skill set that is best suited for killing, assassination and infiltration, since they are the basis of our field. What is left for you to be? Baruko spoke up. Police or criminal? That made him nod his head. Which one pays more? The black-haired genius spoke up again after a long sigh. Criminal, damn you and your reasoning, Naruto. Besides, why do you have that so thought out anyways? The blonde boy shot Shikamaru a glance before looking forward. No reason. Asuma was watching Naruto carefully. So that is where you plan to run to, if you can kill Minato, Naruto. Elsewhere in the land of fire, two people stood in the shadows, then one of them spoke up. So this is where we are supposed to be meeting him, huh? The other figure nodded. Yes, he said that he would be here around noon. The first figure gave a long sigh. Too bad that it is already 1, huh, senpai? He shook his head. Well, he's always had a problem with being punctual. The other nodded, that or his pervert senses were tingling, and he could sense an onsen in the area. If that is the case, then he will show up tomorrow sometime. He falls down on things if he gets one of his feelings. Suddenly a white-haired man was behind them. You know, I expected more respect from my pupils. Both of the figures gave a quick bow to the man. Sorry, Jiraiya-sensei. Jiraiya nodded his head at them. All right, enough of that. There is a reason I called you both here after all. It just so happens that I have a long-term mission for the both of you. They looked at one another then back at him, neither of them missing the devious smile that he had. You will be going to Kanahagakure. The first figure let out a long groan. Fuck. Chapter 4. Missions. The two pupils stood there after the younger one's outburst. Naturally, he was also the first one to start to ask questions. Long-term mission in Kanahagakure. Why is it that we are both going? The white-haired Sanin smiled, then clapped them both on the back. Well, this mission requires Darius, so that takes care of him. As for you, I think it will be funny to make you suffer as all Kiro. The younger man gave a groan. Jiraiya-sensei, you can be so cruel at times. What did I ever do to you to deserve such harsh punishment? Everyone there silently looked at one another. That was until Darius and Jiraiya both started laughing hard. After a few moments, Jiraiya wiped the tears from his eyes. Oh, I needed that laugh. Well done, pupil. Very well done. Now on to why you will be there. I have received news from an old friend that her son is on a serious revenge mission that can lead to some very grave results. She said that there will be no swaying him away from it, but he can use extra training, since hers isn't as effective anymore. Darius nodded his head. Do we have any place of residence, or are we sleeping in a hotel until we run out of money again? That comment was followed up by Kiro as he spoke up, with the empty promises that our sensei is going to send us money. The white-haired Sanin's eyes were bouncing back and forth between the two. He had a hurt look on his face. What? I would never do such a thing to you two. After all, you're my precious pupils. The two looked at one another before Kiro made another smartass remark. It's a 3 times right. Darius nodded his head in the affirmative. That's where my count is at. Jiraiya rolled his eyes. All right, fine, you will be staying with her and her son. There is only one bedroom for you both unless one wants to sleep on the couch. Her name is Kushina Uzumaki, and her son's name is Naruto Uzumaki. He is the bastard son of my old student Minato Namikaze. How wrong I was about him is one of the worst mistakes of my life. They both nodded, then Kiro looked at him. What am I really supposed to be doing there? Torturing me can't be the only reason. The sensei nodded his head in the affirmative. Aside from your torture, which I do actually want to happen by the way, I want you to keep close tabs on Minato and the council. I have never trusted the council, and with Minato being the way he is now, I fear for Kushina and Naruto both. Other than that, you're both just basically on bodyguard duty. Both of the pupils nodded their heads, then the white-haired man then vanished, leaving a note behind. P.S. There is onsen about 3 blocks away. They both let out a sigh and shook their heads before jumping away, heading in the direction of Kanahagakure. Of Team 13, the Kanahagakure team continued their slow-moving trek towards the land of tea in their typical fashion. Asuma was puffing on a cigarette. Shikamaru was looking up at the clouds. Naruto seemed to be thinking, while Naruto was quiet. They were about 3 miles outside of the capital where they were supposed to pick up the scroll. All in all, it had been a very boring trip for Naruto, seeing as she had 2 antisocial teammates and a sensei, who seemed to be too in love with his cigarettes. All that really meant for her was that there was no one to hold a conversation with. At times she wished she got placed on a team with someone like Ino or Sakura. They talked a lot, but at least she wouldn't be so bored. She may have gotten annoyed, but not as bored. She really wasn't too sure if that was actually a good trade-off though. Naruto looked over at Naruto, who was just watching where they were walking, until he looked over at her. Why do you keep looking at me, princess? Naruto just continued to look at him, feeling a bit excited that someone was finally speaking. I have some questions for you, if you don't mind. The blonde boy just looked forward. I do mind. The small growl of frustration was the response that the blonde girl gave to the blonde boy. She wasn't used to people denying her what she wanted, and something about it made her obsessed with him. She started to match his stride right next to him and leaned in real close. I don't care, I am asking anyways. Naruto looked at her again, then shook his head with a sigh. Princess doesn't get told no too often, does she? She went to hit him, but he caught her punch, then pushed her back, almost making her fall from being off balance. You remember last time that we fought? Yes. Naruto nodded her head. I remember you trying to piss off my dad. That made it so the boy smirked. Oh, I believe that he left that ceremony hall fuming. At the very least, I definitely irritated him, at least by proving the gap between both of our skill levels. The girl looked at him. Why would he even give a damn? He got extremely quiet at the question. His eyes went from the other blonde to looking back in front of them as they walked. We all have our secrets, Naruto, even you. I suggest that you don't pry into others' secrets and lives, especially mine, since you won't like what you find in that darkness. That caused a girl to just become even more curious than before. Damn it, give me the answers I want. Naruto shook his head no, again making her grab his collar. Why were your eyes crimson? Why do you hate me and my family? Why do you seem to not care about anyone? Holding on to his apathetic look, he started at her. He knew that she was trying to provoke him, hoping that it would lead to the answers that she wants. I thought I said no. Naruto growled, then pulled herself up against him, making his eyes look down. He had never been this close to someone before, except his mother, and that was when he was much younger. He was feeling a bit uncomfortable since he could feel her budding assets pressing against him while he kept thinking in his head, she is your sister, she is your sister, she is your sister. Naruto had a small smirk on her face as she saw that his eyes had looked at her body. As I thought, he isn't used to someone being this close to him. The only person who has more than likely ever gotten nearly this close would be Kushina-san, and a hug. Naruto continued to smirk as he spoke, not in his usual tone though. Please get away from me. She shook her head. No, I will, but only under the condition that you give me my answers though. The boy sighed then nodded, making her release him. His natural cinnamon and earth scent still lingering in her nostrils from the close proximity they were just in. She looked over at Naruto. Well, he gave a long drawn-out sigh, frustration clearly evident on his face and in his tone. What were the questions again? I really only catch about every other word with you. She went to yell at him, but saw that he was trying to distract her from the topic. Why were your eyes crimson? Why do you hate me and my family? Why do you seem to not care about anyone? Naruto tapped his chin, in that order. Secret, because I can and I care about my mom. There, I answered your questions, now leave me alone. She went to grab his shirt, but he caught her hand. Looking up, she saw that his eyes turned crimson again as he glared at her with the most intense glare he had ever given her. Leave me alone. Naruto. Touch me again and your father loses his only child. She drew her hand back slowly as his eyes went back to being azure. She continued to just stare at him. Maybe it's some kind of Kekai Genkai. I kind of doubt that Kushina-sen would give me the answers for the question. Maybe Asuma-sensei will though. Naruto gave him one last glance, then slowed her pace, dropping back by Asuma and starting to match his pace. Hey Asuma-sensei, do you know a lot about Naruto? The man shrugged. I have known him since he was born. Don't think I know much about him though, since he is pretty secretive. The best person to get answers from would be Kushina. The girl gave a sigh. That wasn't the answer that she was hoping for. She won't tell me anything though. I have tried to get answers about him from her with no results. The shrug was her response from the chain-smoking sensei. Maybe, and I am just speculating here, that is because their life doesn't concern you, Naruto. Said girl looked over at him, a bit of a downtrodden look on her face. But we are teammates. Don't teams usually have very close bonds to one another? The Jounin stroked his beard before exhaling some cigarette smoke. Usually they do, but I find it highly unlikely that this team will have that. Naruto is very unlikely to open up to anyone on this team. Shikamaru would find it too troublesome to open up, and you, well, there really isn't anything that we don't know about you. The girl looked at him then tapped her chin. So what you are saying is that if there were things that people didn't know about me, then they might be more interested in opening up? I can definitely think of quite a few things that others don't know about. The Suma let out a sigh. No, that wasn't what I meant. I meant that they honestly just don't care enough for that. She hung her head again. This was just a depressing day for her all the way around, it seemed. She spoke in a very defeated tone. I was looking forward to having a team of people I was close to though. Shikamaru walked up by Naruto. Hey, do you think that we should give her what she wants? But the sharp look at the black-haired teen, he already knew the answer. Naruto decided though that he would really drive the point home for him. Do what you like. I have no obligations to appease her needs. The Nara just looked at Naruto. You have a very pessimistic attitude, you know. But Uzumaki stared at Shikamaru. Does it seem like I give a shit what you people think? Did I in some way, shape or form give you all the impression that I want to be buddy-buddy with you all? I have one goal in my life, and that is something that neither of you are going to get in the way of. Personally, I see this whole beyond a team thing as a giant hindrance to my goals. The way I see it, the faster I am through with you all, the better off I will be. Shikamaru looked at him, choosing to ignore the insulting comments the blonde just levied at him. You're talking about your pissing match with the yandere, right? I assume that your goal is to inflict some sort of pain to him, or kill him, one or the other. The blonde teen gave Shikamaru a concentrated look, then a smirk that clearly couldn't be trusted. You will keep that to yourself, or something will happen to you on this mission. I am sure that your funeral will be very nice though, people crying and saying how smart you were. I will be sitting there though, smiling since I killed you nice and slow. Will be fun. Want to keep talking now? Want to be more buddy-buddy with me, Nara? The black-haired genius just stared at him, then noticed that Naruto wasn't joking. He would kill him. Hell, if Shikamaru didn't know better, he would think the boy might actually enjoy killing him. Naruto looked at him, smirking as Shikamaru's pace slowed down, so that Naruto was walking ahead of him, and the boy just looked forward again. Naruto just smiled. No one will interfere with my objective, and if I have to take a few people down to achieve my goal, then so be it. After all, there were always innocent casualties in war. Naruto felt eyes on him, and looked back at his team who were all staring at him. Then Naruto stopped as his senses started to tingle. He took a deep inhale, then looked around. There are people surrounding us. The Suma looked at Naruto, then pinched his chakra and felt some signatures nearby. Naruto looked at Naruto. You're also heated for some reason. The girl blushed, sputtering out a response. WHWHHA, what are you talking about? Naruto stared at her, heated, horny, wanting to fuck, or should I use different words? I swear, I think that you're either special or hard of hearing. Her blush turned to a deep crimson red as she looked away, making him smirk. So sensitive about it. Sex isn't so bad. Feels pretty good actually. Baruko's jaw dropped as her head snapped back over to him. You have had sex? They nodded, then Asuma stepped in. Hey, you two want to pay attention or what? Naruto sighed, then closed his eyes. It's going to rain. Everyone looked up to see sunny skies. What are you talking at? Suddenly Asuma stopped speaking as clouds seemed to materialize from nothing. Naruto looked up at them with a small smirk. It's a basic storm release move, but should do the trick, since the rain will cover my chakra signature. Won't cover their chakra signatures, but if the enemy doesn't know that I am there, then I have the advantage. When the rain started to fall, Naruto disappeared before his team could even realize that he was gone. The other people started to move in on the Konohagakure team. Asuma was about to give out orders when he finally noticed that Naruto was gone. He looked around, then pinched his chakra and couldn't find Naruto before he remembered a conversation they had once. Team 13 had just finished a couple of D-ranked missions and were heading to their assigned training ground. Today was supposed to be ninjutsu training, and Asuma was actually a bit anxious to see what they could do, especially Naruto. When the team got there though, Naruto hung back to speak to Asuma privately. Asuma-sensei, I need to do my ninjutsu training in private. I have things that I am working on that I am not allowed to show anyone just yet. Asuma gave him a curious look. This was clearly not helping him with wanting to know what the blonde teen boy could do. I need more to go off than just that, Naruto. Besides, depending on what you are working on, I may be able to help you out. I am a jounin after all. The blonde shook his head. No, it's clan related, which means that I am allowed to work in secret. I just need you to approve it so that I can do it more than just at home. At least let me do it while you catch these two up to me. After that I will train with you all. The Sarutobi looked at Naruto, then sighed. Fine, but eventually I want to know what you are working on, Naruto. The boy looked at him. I will consider it. Asuma let out a sigh. Of course, a gift from his father that is a weapon, training on his own, and now a freak random rainstorm. He got the storm release from his Namika's blood. At least with this we will be able to prove that Kushina was never lying to anyone, and that she isn't a whore. The man looked around as ninjas started to exit the forest and make their way toward them. The man had to have faith that Naruto would do something to help. He then ordered the others to attack. As they were about to attack though, there was a golden flash, leaving people standing there not moving until they collapsed to their knees in front of Team 13. Asuma kept his guard up. He looked at them with suspicious eyes before Naruto appeared in front of him. The rogues looked at him, then one of them spoke up. Impossible, I couldn't sense a genin. That's simply not possible. What are you really? Naruto preformed a hand sign for the shadow clone jutsu that his mother had taught him. There was now Naruto in front of every rogue. They all pulled out a kunai and placed it under the throat of a rogue. I am complicated. Then each Naruto had a swift fluid motion in which they sliced through the jugular of the rogue in front of them. The sounds of choking filled the area as Naruto cancelled the jutsu, making it so that all the clones dispersed except the original, who had a smile on his face. The young teen just stared at the rogue in front of him, watching as he gripped his throat, trying to slow the bleeding. Naruto put his foot on the man's head, then pushed him over, still smiling. Pathetic piece of trash. Should have stayed in your village where someone could have protected you. That was when someone came out of the underbrush at him. Knowing that this person had been there, he quickly threw the kunai through the woman's eye. The kunoichi came stumbling forward before collapsing to the ground in front of him. PFFT, what a waste of time. I wanted a challenge, not a warm-up. Actually, I am honestly not sure if you all could even be considered that, just pathetic. Naruto walked over to her and pulled out his kunai, and saw she was still alive. Naruto just stared down at her as she reached up towards him. Help me. The boy just continued to look at her. Why would I do that? You're of no use to me. But the swift motion, he cut her at the jugular just like the others, then started to seal their bodies for any bounty he could collect. He doubted that they were worth much, but any money to help his mother was worth collecting. When he finished, the rain stopped and the sun started to come through again. Naruto looked over at his team, who were looking at him with different looks. Shikamaru looked afraid of him, which really didn't surprise him all that much. After all, he had spent a good amount of time threatening to kill the Narair. Asuma was looking at him with concern, which again didn't surprise him. The man seemed to think that he was supposed to watch out for him and make him not want to kill his father, as if that was ever going to happen. Then there was Naruko, who was looking at him with an expression he didn't know, but for some reason her smell was alluring to him. He shook it off as the thrill from battle, and started to walk towards the capital again. There weren't any more issues on their mission until they got home. Chapter 5. New annoyances. Upon arriving back at the large Konohagakure gates, all of Team 13 flashed their identification to the gate guards. Giving the identification cards a quick glance, the guards waved them through. After the team was through the gate and back on home soil, Asuma spoke. Okay, so we are going to go do our report to the Yondaime, and then we are taking a break tomorrow. That means no team training or D-ranked missions. You are free for personal training or whatever it is that you desire to do. Naruto and Shikamaru both gave a quick nod with an appreciative smile. Naruto, seeing how excited his two teammates appeared to be for a day off, shook his head in disapproval. Asuma looked at him. "What's wrong, Naruto?" Said teen didn't reply. It was something that he probably shouldn't say anyways. Kasan always telling him that when he didn't have something nice to say that he should keep it to himself. Asuma stared at him though, not taking the silence for an answer. "Naruto, answer me." The blonde sighed. If the bearded Sarutobi was really going to push him for the answer, then he would. Should you really give them a day off? They were basically useless when we were attacked. I don't think that they should be allowed to take time off like that. Shikamaru had an uninterested look on his face while Naruto glared at the blonde teen. "You just think that you're so damn awesome, don't you?" The blonde Jinchuriki looked over at her then sighed. "No, I think that you are useless. I am pretty sure that I just said that." "So which one is it? Are you slow or just hard of hearing?" The girl quickly drew a kunai and went to thrust it at him, but he caught her hand and squeezed. She grimaced in pain for a moment, then her determined look came back. The two just stared at one another for a minute until he had an amused smirk on his face. "Maybe Kasan was right about you. I have been telling her over and over that she was wasting her time by training you, but she is determined that you can at least be an adequate Kunoichi. I wouldn't expect much more if I were you though." As he continued, his eyes went over to Shikamaru. He, on the other hand, could be quite a challenger asset if he cared about his career. High intellect with a rare set of jutsu. If he put the time in for chakra training he would be interesting, but he doesn't care. Or as he would say, it's too troublesome. This team is an irritation. Any day that Asuma-sensei gives you off should be spent doing intense personal training. They released Naruto and pushed her back, "And not with me, since you keep asking my mother about it, princess." The bearded chain smoker was looking at him intensely, not approving of the way he was speaking to his teammates. When Naruto went to leave he then pulled him back towards himself and his teammates. "Naruto, do not disrespect your teammates in such a way. You are supposed to work as a unit, and all you are doing is breeding distrust and resentment between you all." The blonde Uzumaki just stared at his sensei. "I am speaking the truth. If anything you should thank me. I don't know what the Nara will do, but Princess will get a fire under her ass just to prove me wrong. I did half of your job for you." The Suma rose his eyebrow at him, following what blonde boy was saying. "Interesting, and what is it that you want for this help?" Naruto stared at him. "I know you have been romantically pursuing my Kasan." The Sarutobi looked at him. "So you want me to stop, I assume?" He smirked. "On the contrary, sensei, I want you to make it public. The only person I care about in this hellhole of a village is my Kasan, and if in some odd way you make her happy then so be it." Staring at him for a moment, Asuma couldn't tell if the boy was being serious or not. "You're an odd kid, you know that, right?" Shrugging, Naruto continued. "As I said, I care about her, and for some reason that escapes me she chose you as a suitor. Just know that if you fuck this up you will be my warm-up for Minato team." Asuma stared at him, then nodded his head before they all headed to the Yandame's office. As usual though, it made the mood go from bad to worse when those two were allowed in the same room as one another. Minato sat there reading over the report carefully, disappointed by his daughter and, regrettably, intrigued by his bastard son. Minato's eyes went over to Naruto. "Explain to me how you won this battle, Naruto." The blonde didn't answer, then pulled out a scroll and tossed it to Minato. "Give me my bounties first." The two stared at one another. "You forget your place, Genin." Naruto shrugged at him with a smirk. "You're the one who wants to know something. Either way I get my money. This just means that I get what I want first. So either you pay me now and then I tell you, or I don't tell you and get paid later. Your choice, Hokage." Once again the two stared at each other. Well, Asuma sighed. Always a fight with them. If anyone ever thought they would have a civilized conversation, then they just have to be involved in one of these meetings. Minato squinted, then threw the scroll to Hana, retrieved the money for Naruto Uzumaki. Without a word she nodded, then left the room, thinking that he could have at least said, "Please, Naruto, you disappointed me. I really expected more from you. Why is it that when I read this report it says that Naruto was the only one who killed someone?" She tapped her fingers together. "I was ready to fight, but this weird rain came out of nowhere, and we didn't know where Naruto went after it started." And Minato quickly interrupted her. "And here I was under the impression that you had good sensory skills." His daughter quickly went on the defensive. "I do though." His chakra signature disappeared when the rain started. "I can't explain what happened. It makes no sense." Beyondame's eyes widened, then he looked over at Naruto who was glaring at his half-sister. "Stupid girl." Minato continued to look at him. "That's impossible." Looking back over at Minato, Naruto got a sinister smirk on his face again. "Oh, it's not as impossible as you think it is." "What's wrong, Hokage-sama?" "Afraid that your secret will come to light. That people are going to be getting the respect that is owed to them, and your true nature will come to light." Shikamaru and Naruto were looking at Naruto, then back at Minato before Shikamaru's eyes widened. "Oh my Kami, I get it now, it all makes sense. Both of the male blondes in the room looked at him before their glares went back to one another. As Naruto spoke up, "Good for you, you know the truth, now shut up." Minato continued to stare at Naruto while the younger blonde male smirked. "I have powers you can't even imagine, you asshole. I will get my wish, and my mother's honor will be returned to her." Everyone stared at the two of them before Hana came back and gave Naruto his bounty. Naruto put it in his pouch, then looked at Asuma. "Am I dismissed, Asuma-sensei?" The Suma looked at him, then over at Minato, who nodded dumbly, clearly still in shock from the revelation from the boy. Team 13 is dismissed. They all disappeared while Minato leaned back in his chair, finally muttering out, "I can't believe it, that little shit got the bloodline. It was supposed to be extinct." Hana looked at him, finally speaking her mind a little bit about everything in that situation. "You know what this means, right, Minato? His heritage will come to light, and people will know that Kushina was never lying about you. Your reputation will be ruined. They will want to elect a new Hokage to replace you. They won't let someone like you lead this village anymore." Minato looked at her, a fury burning in his eyes. "Would you shut up?" Usually that would make her be quiet, but she just glared right back at him. "When that happens, when everyone knows how you really are, I am taking Naruto with me, and we are leaving you for good." He looked over at her, swinging his arm and hitting the stack of paperwork, knocking it all over the place. "You can't. I will not let you." Anna stood and looked at him, then spoke before she left. "You will not have any power after that happens, Minato. Both Naruto and I will be free of you." He didn't like that one bit and flashed to her and grabbed her wrist harshly, then with a quick motion spun her around. Hana looked at him with a bit of fear in his eyes as he glared at her. "You are not going anywhere. Do you understand me? Even if that bastard does reveal everything, I will not have what is mine taken from me." The woman just stayed there before nodding her head, fearful for not only her life but Naruto as well. "Yes, Minato, we won't leave." He nodded his head before releasing her. "I will not hear about this again. If you try, then I will kill you and keep her for myself. Perhaps then she will become a better Kunoichi." His wife said nothing, then nodded her head before leaving. Minato went back to his chair, then turned in it to overlook Konohagakure. "Naruto, perhaps when the time comes, you will be more difficult to deal with than I originally thought. I will still kill you, but maybe it won't be such a walk in the park as I originally believed." At the Uzumaki compound, Naruto opened the door, then slammed it shut, startling his mother and his unknown guests. Kushina shook her head with a sigh, then got up and went to find out what was wrong with Naruto. "Sweetie, you're going to break the door again. I am assuming this is because of Minato again." He looked at the door before looking at his mother, going to answer her, then he picked up unfamiliar scents. "Who is here?" Kushina gave him a small smile. "I will answer you if you answer me afterwards, okay?" He nodded his head, then Kushina rubbed his cheek, trying to calm him down. "I called on a friend to get you some people to help train you. I can't help progress you anymore, so I wanted to get some people that could. Their names are Darius and Kiro. Now, why are you slamming doors again?" The boy growled a bit as he thought about it some more. "Naruto made it, so that the bastard knows my secret." Kushina looked at him, a bit confused by how Naruto would know his secret. "How does she know though?" Naruto looked at her. "I used one of my techniques, and she described what happened when I was using it to him. Apparently, even though Minato doesn't have the storm release bloodline, he studied it extensively enough to know the technique." His mother gave a sigh, then put her hands on his shoulders. "It's okay, Naruto. You will become strong enough to kill him like you want. Now, what exactly happened on your mission?" Naruto described his mission to her, then he smiled at her. "I also told Asuma that he has to make your relationship, or at least his pursuit of you, public, since that is what you want for whatever reason." His mother's face turned as red as her hair. "What are you talking about?" Her son just stared at her. "I know all about it, Kasan, and as I told him, you're the only person I care about in this village. For some odd reason he makes you happy, so I want you to be with him so that you can be happy. I hate that you have to give things up for me. That has never been what I wanted for you in the least, Kasan. When I reveal the truth about my who father is, then I promise things will get much better for you." Kushina gave him a soft smile, then kissed his forehead. "You're 12, Naruto. Please start to act like it. I am supposed to worry about you, not the other way around." He stared at her, then kissed her forehead. "If I didn't worry about you, then all I would have is my hatred. Now I suppose that I will go meet these people that you called." The boy walked past his mother into the dining room where the two men were arguing while sitting at the table. The younger one groaned. "Seriously, senpai? You can't smell that? There is something in the air and it is so alluring." Darius sighed. "For the 1000th time, I don't have a heightened sense of smell." Kiro sighed, then slumped into his chair. "That smell is driving me insane." The older man sighed. "And you're driving me insane. Now we are both going insane. We're supposed to be representing sensei here, so act like it." The younger man looked at Darius. "Doesn't that mean we should blow off this meeting to go peep on women?" The older man rubbed his forehead, then drug his hand down his face. "I swear to Kami, between his perverseness and your complaining, I am going to die young." Naruto had grown tired of the ridiculous banter and cleared his throat. Both of them looked over at him, then smiled as Darius spoke. "Hello Naruto, how are you?" The boy just stared at them. "So you're supposed to train me? Who was your sensei that my mother called in a favor with?" The two looked at one another, then Kiro spoke. "Jiraiya of the Sannin." The boy's face turned into a glare. "So the same sensei as him." That was when the red-headed woman came in behind him. "Naruto, Jiraiya-san doesn't approve of what he did either. He wants to help rectify the mistakes that he has made." Naruto looked over his shoulder at his mother, then back at the two of them. "What are you able to teach me then?" Darius looked at him. "Well, I have a water affiliation as well as a fire affiliation. So since I hear that you have the storm release, I can teach you some water jutsu and help progress that part of your storm release. I also got clearance from Jiraiya-sensei to let you try to sign the Toad contract if you want to. I know that the Yondaime also signed to it, but having a contract is useful. Other than that, I can teach you to use wakizashi blades." Shaking his head no, Naruto looked at the older of the pair. "I have a contract to sign in a couple of months. Besides, as you pointed out, he is on that contract as well. What about you?" Kiro was distracted again then. Instead of answering the question, he asked his own. "You have enhanced senses, don't you, Naruto?" The boy slowly nodded his head, then Kiro spoke again. "Do you smell anything?" Naruto shook his head no while raising his eyebrow, making him sigh. "I truly am going insane. Well, I have lightning and fire affiliations, so I can help you with the lightning area of your storm release, as well as teach you some lightning jutsu to expand your jutsu arsenal. I have a contract as well, but the animal is very selective. Besides, you said you already have a contract to sign here soon. Other than that, I have these hand blades that I use that I could teach you how to use." The boy's eyes went back and forth between the two of them, before he let out a long drawn-out sigh. "We will see what you can do, but for the time being I am going to bed." Everyone nodded, then Naruto left to go upstairs. Kiro took another deep inhale before letting out a small growl. "I know there is a scent there." Darius sighed, then looked at Kushina. "Thank you for allowing us to stay here, Kushina-san. We won't be in your way too much, I hope. We hope to get his training going here in the next couple days." Kushina rubbed the back of her head. Yeah, well, first off, I only have the one room, though I am in the process of getting more rooms added onto the compound. As for Naruto, he isn't going to let you train him for a while. He is more or less going to be observe and analyze you. The easiest way to get him to train is to thoroughly overpower him in a match, though I can't guarantee he would even agree to that part either." Darius sighed at that. "I really don't want the Yondaime knowing we are here for as long as we possibly can. We will have to think of something then, some way to convince him. Your help would be greatly appreciated, Kushina-san." Kushina nodded, then there was a knock at the door. She quickly got up and went to the door to see Asuma standing there. He gave her a small smile, then rubbed the back of his head. "Hey Kushina-chan, I assume Naruto has told you what he wanted, right?" She nodded her head with a blush creeping up onto her face. "Yeah." His smile grew, seeing the blush on her face causing him to blush as well, then looked at her some more. "So I was wondering if you want to get some dinner with me tomorrow." Kushina looked at him. It's okay, Asuma. You don't have to take me out on a date just because Naruto demanded it." The Saratobi looked at her. "I do genuinely want to take you. He is more like the kick in the pants to finally motivate me into asking you. Though if you are saying that because you don't want to go with me, that is fine as well." He turned to leave until Kushina yelled for him. "Hold on, Asuma. Okay, I would definitely love to go to dinner with you. You can pick me up at 6, okay?" The man nodded with a smile before turning to leave the Uzumaki compound. Neither of them saw that Naruto was standing in his room by his open window watching them. He nodded his head before turning away from the window. "I know that Asuma-sensei would be too hard for him to kill off. I hope that this time you are able to be happy, Kasen. Maybe even have a child you can be proud of." With that thought, he looked back at the window, thinking of the smile that his mother had on her face as Asuma asked her out. Chapter 6. A moment of vulnerability. It had been a month since the two supposed trainers had arrived at the Uzumaki compound. Naruto had been less than pleased or impressed with them. Darius seemed to be trying the wait and let him come to me approach with Naruto, something that anyone who knew Naruto advised against. Kiro on the other hand seemed to be partially insane in Naruto's opinion. He was always complaining about a scent that no one else could smell. It seemed to be the one thing that man was able to talk about. All in all, Naruto felt more tempted to try and kill them than let them train him. Currently Naruto was rather annoyed. Besides dealing with the newest annoyances to his life, his plan with his teammates had both worked and failed at the same time. While it inspired Naruto to train and even inspired Shikamaru as well, the princess wouldn't leave him alone, constantly pestering him about wanting to train or spar. It didn't matter how many times he said no, even though he had no interest in training with her, telling her such multiple times. In his mind it was just proving the point that the blonde-haired girl was at least a little mentally challenged. Tapping his fingers on the table, resting his head on his other hand, Naruto heard Naruko and his mother outside training. That was when he heard another chair being scooted out, which pulled him out of his inner thoughts. He saw Darius sit down across from him with a slight smile. "Hello, Naruto." Said teen just stared at the man for a moment before going back to tapping his fingers on the table. With an irritated tone he responded back to the older man, "What is it that you want, Darius?" Shrugging, that man just continued to smile at him. "I don't have any motives. I am just wondering if you're interested in training with me today." That was when Kiro rounded the corner into the dining room, scoffing at the comment. The boy obviously doesn't want to get stronger, senpai. Might as well just leave it alone. Just start to think of this as a vacation like I have. Glaring at the man, Naruto scoffed in return. "I do want to get stronger. You two have been less than impressive." Darius focused his trained eyes on Naruto. "How would you know that? You have been very adamant in not letting us train you, so you do not know how powerful we truly are." He went to respond, but as he went to speak, the back door opened. Everyone looked over to see Naruto and Kushina coming into the house. The blonde teen girl had a large proud smile as she received praise from Kushina. "You have come very far, Naruto. You should be very proud of yourself. Given enough time you may be able to even rival Naruto-kun in battle." The boy scoffed, then muttered under his breath, "Sure she will, right after I go give my father a big loving hug and hell freezes over." Kiro gave a small snort of laughter at the comment. "So you can be something other than a snotty little brat." The glare from Naruto was his response as Naruto and Kushina came over to the table. Kushina kissed Naruto on the top of the head. "Are you giving them more problems, Naruto-kun?" He just continued to glare at Kiro, then shook his head no as he looked over at his mother. "They give me all the problems. I was happily sitting here debating on what I want to do. That was when they came over here with their bullshit spouting of being powerful again." Kushina sat in her seat with a sigh and a shake of her head. "Don't swear, Naruto-kun." Naruto gave her a confused look. He swore all the time, and she never had an issue. Hell, he had learned most of the words from her. His eyes went over to Naruto, who was sitting next to him. "Why are you still here? And why are you sitting so close to me?" That was when Kiro spoke up. "And why do you smell heated?" Naruto's face turned a bright crimson red from the question. She scurried out of her chair and looked over at Kushina before giving a small bow. "Thank you for the training today, Kushina-san. I will see you in a couple days when we have our next training session." The red-headed woman nodded her head while giving the young girl a soft smile. "See you then, Naruto. Have a safe trip home." But the nod, the girl rushed out the door, still a bright red, and trying to hide her face in embarrassment. The adults in the room looked at Kiro with a disapproving look on their faces. The man looked at them with a confused look. "What?" Darius eyed, then rubbed his temples in frustration. "I swear, between you and Sensei, I will die young from stress and humiliation." The younger man looked at Darius, the look on his face, showing that he clearly didn't understand. "I don't know what you mean, senpai." Kushina then spoke up. "Why did you ask her that? You humiliated the poor girl." The man looked a bit confused, then Naruto spoke up. "I don't see the issue with it. I have asked her why she smelled heated before as well, but she didn't answer me either. Princess is a very odd person like that." The Uzumaki matriarch stared at her son, her mouth hanging a bit in shock. "Why would you ask her that, Naruto-kun? I taught you to be more respectful towards women." Sighing, knowing that he had just gotten himself in trouble with his mother, tried to defend himself. "Well, she irritated me, and it just kinda happened." Kiro spoke up again. "Plus you always smell heated around Asuma-san." Darius quickly slapped Kiro upside the back of head. "Bad, Kiro. Do not disrespect the woman who is letting us stay in her home." "Bad." The man growled a bit at that. "I am not a dog, you know. I do not like Konohagakure. The brat won't let us train him. The yondaime is boring as hell to follow. I can't make jokes, and that scent is driving me insane." Everyone rolled their eyes before Kushina commented. "Great, here we go with this again." Kiro growled a bit more then stood. "I will find out where that scent is coming from. I have tracked it to being in the clan district of this village somewhere." The man stormed out of the house to go and went to further his investigation of the scent that was driving him so crazy. The others looked at him leave before releasing a joint sigh and continued on with their conversations. With Kiro, the brown-haired man landed on a roof inside of the clan zone, keeping low to not be spotted by any ambu. Technically speaking, he wasn't supposed to be in here, but Darius kept telling him to represent his sensei. The thought made him smirk. "So I will investigate that smell in an area that I am not supposed to be in. I mean, if I really wanted to be like Jiraiya-sensei, I would go find a onsen to spy on women as they bathe." Shaking his head of those impure thoughts, he refocused, then looked around to make sure he hadn't been spotted. Both he and Darius had been thoroughly trained in infiltration, espionage and covert work as Jiraiya's pupils. That still didn't mean that every now and then someone wouldn't get lucky with a brief sighting. Kiro closed his eyes, then took in a deep breath, trying to further pinpoint the scent that had been driving him absolutely insane. Taking a second to process all the scents, he narrowed in a little more on the smell before opening his eyes. With another quick glance around the area, he darted off across the rooftops. They may not be as fast as his sensei or senpai, but he was getting there. That was something that he actively worked on. If it was Darius or Jiraiya, there was hardly a chance to spot them when they were running, unless by a trained eye that was looking for them. He noticed a door opening, and he dove behind a wall to hide himself. He sat there silently as he heard a feminine voice speak, "I am going to work, Ka-san." For most it would have been a muffled voice that answered, but since Kiro had heightened senses of smell, hearing and sight, he was able to pick up the words easily. "Are you sure you only mean work? You are still in need of a mate. That's something that you need to get to work on, you're of age." There was a groaning sound before a yelling, "Shut up, mother. I swear to Kami it's all you talk about." There was a yelling in response, "Oh course. You are supposed to be an example for the other females. Damn it, Hana, find a fucking mate already." With another groaning sound, a door slammed and very noticeable stomping, probably even for those without enhanced hearing, was heard. Kiro glanced around the corner at the young woman who was stomping away from her clan home. As he peered over the wall, his senses were assaulted by that scent, again making his eyes widen, as he just figured out where the smell had been coming from all this time. With an excited smirk, he dashed off in the same direction the woman was going. Then after a few minutes she stopped, knowing someone was there from being able to smell him. "Whoever you are, just come out. I am in no mood." Kiro leaped from the roof and landed in front of her with his black ninja shirt and pants. He didn't wear a hit I-8, making his shaggy hair bounce a bit from his landing, then hang there. He stood straight up and smiled at her with hazel eyes shining a bit. "I heard, your mother seems like she is a very interesting person." The woman growled, "So you stalk people and eavesdrop on their conversations? Who the hell do you think you are?" The man scratched the back of his head. He found it a bit hard to argue with that logic. "Well, I blame some of that on my sensei, but that is no excuse. I am very sorry if I offended you in any such way. It's just that you are giving off the scent that is driving me insane." With a rose eyebrow, Hana gave him a very skeptical look. "What do you mean my scent?" Shrugging, the brown-haired man kept smiling at her. "I don't know how to properly describe it. I have been smelling it since I got here, and it has been driving me up a well basically. I don't know what it is, it's just so alluring." Taking a step backwards, she adopted a defensive look with a growl. "I think you need to stay away from me." Kiro looked at her with a confused look before he realized how it seemed. He took a step back as well, putting his hands up. "I won't do anything to you, miss. I will leave you be, since I now know at least what that scent is." As the man went to jump away, she spoke up again. "What is your name?" Smiling at her, he responded, "Kiro Akami. May I inquire as to what your name is?" Thinking about declining, she knew that he already knew her first name. Besides, she had just asked what his name was, so it was only fair to answer, "Hana Inuzuka." With a smile and a bow, the Akami responded again, "It is my pleasure to meet you, Ms. Inuzuka. Have a good day at work. Perhaps we will meet again." But that he shined away, making her look around to try and sense him. When she couldn't ping his chakra anywhere, she narrowed her eyes a bit. What the hell was with that guy? "I will have to talk to Ka-san about this whole situation later when I get back home." With Naruto, the blonde Uzumaki stood in his home's training ground with his eyes closed. He was practicing the control of Kurama's chakra, just cycling it through his body to different areas. The fox demon he held inside of him had told him that if he practiced cycling the chakra through his system, then he would be able to handle more and more of it at a time, making his body become more accustomed to it. He heard the crunching of grass and opened his now crimson eyes to look behind him. That was when he saw someone he wasn't expecting to see, his sensei Asuma. "Hello, Asuma-sensei." The man smiled and nodded. "So Naruto, you have the storm release, huh?" Staring at his sensei for a moment, the teen turned his attention back forward, choosing to ignore the question. Asuma came and stood next to Naruto as the teen focused on controlling the flow of the Kyuubi chakra. Looking up at the night sky, the sensei lighted a new cigarette for himself. "Your mother told me about your two new senseis. One is a water affiliate, and one is a lightning affiliate. If you really want to master your bloodline, then you need a wind affiliate as well. As you know, that is something that I happen to be." Naruto opened his eyes to look at him. "What are you getting at?" Smiling, the Saratobi took a long drag off his cigarette. "I can progress your wind element manipulation. Will you let them help you with the others? The key to a bloodline like these are proper balancing of the elements. For example, there was a clan in Kuridakar that used to be famed for ice manipulation, which is a blend of water and wind. Without a proper balance of those two elements, the jutsu becomes unstable and deteriorates." Giving a brief glance towards his sensei before returning to look forward. "I haven't even decided if I will let those two buffoons teach me. One of them just goes on and on about a scent that only he can smell. The other just complains about the first one while sitting around. I think that I would be better going forward without their interference. More than likely they would regress me, rather than progress me." Letting out a light chuckle, the Saratobi looked at Naruto again. "You said that your Ka-san is the only one that you care about in this village, right?" Nodding his head quickly in response, Asuma nodded back, then looked up at the sky once more. "Your Ka-san worries about you almost as much as you worry about her. I know that if you would allow us to just help with your elements a little, just to the point of helping you understand and control them, Just enough to make it so you get a better grasp on this bloodline. She would be much more at ease, and a lot less stressed about it. Giving his sensei a calculating look, Naruto let out an irritated sigh. You are supposed to help distract her and keep her happy. Perhaps I was wrong in my choosing of you, Asuma-sensei. Said man just rose his eyebrow at him. You know that if Kushina-chan would have asked me herself, you wouldn't have stopped her. Naruto nodded his head, then looked at the ground with crimson eyes. The thing is that she stopped asking guys out for 2 reasons. One of them was me, since I don't care for others too much, something I have felt guilty about for years. 2 is my bastard of a father, he doesn't like other men around her. I assume he still thinks in that fucked up head of his that she still holds romantic feelings for him. The fool is so wrong. It actually amuses me though. I figured that you wouldn't be scared off by him, and she holds these feelings for you. The boy, at least for a brief moment, flashed a look of pain on his face. I also figured that if you two were to have a child one day, she would finally have someone to be proud of. I know I am not a good son to her. I cost her more than I give her by an exceptionally large margin. When the time comes that I confront him, I will either die fighting him or be on the run for assassinating the Hokage. That being as it is, I will need someone to watch over her, someone to care for her. I figured if not me, you would be the next best choice. Though I blackmailed you into asking her out, I know you both wanted it to happen, so I thought it was what was best for Kasan. The man just stared at Naruto, in disbelief that at least for a brief moment, Naruto showed him a vulnerable side. The boy had actually opened up a bit to someone other than Kushina. Asuma rationalized that it was because of the fact that it was something Kushina would be upset with him saying. Naruto's eyes hardened again before he closed them. I will consider allowing you and the buffoons teach me. Asuma just stared at him for a moment, then nodded his head and left to go and find Kushina. There were things that she needed to be aware of, whether Naruto wanted her to know or not. Naruto opened his eyes as Asuma left, watching the retreating form of the Sarutobi man, before letting out a sigh at his own thought. I am going to hurt her even more when he tells her of Kiro and Darius. Kiro arrived back at the Uzumaki compound scratching his head. His senpai looked up from the paper he was reading, seeing who walked in and then lifted it back up to resume reading. So did the crazy man find his imaginary scent. The younger man said nothing as he got some water and sat down deep in his own thoughts. Darius folded down his paper and looked over at the man. Seeing that he was deep in thought, he put down his paper. What is wrong with you? It was just a joke, you know, don't need to take it so seriously. Kiro snapped his head up and over to Darius. What was just a joke, senpai? That made Darius's eyebrow raise up. What is up with you, Kiro? Said man just scratched the back of his head some more. Well, I found the source of the scent, but it wasn't what I expected. The older man leaned back in his chair with a small smile as this reminded him of old times. Jiraiya had been relatively absent after accepting Kiro as an apprentice, and most of his training fell to Darius. That being said, Kiro also came to Darius with his questions and concerns. Darius held his small smile as he looked at Kiro. What was the scent coming off of then? Kiro scratched the back of his head. Well, the scent was from a woman, and I don't really understand it. Plus there is also the fact she thinks I stalk her, and possibly thinks I was going to touch her without a permission. Perhaps our travels with Jiraiya-sensei have started to make people think that we are like him. Darius rose his eyebrow once again. Well, that is a concerning though. Did you say something specially that was so concerning? He shook his head. No, I just didn't think about what I was saying is all. I just said what it was. I told her that her scent was alluring to me, and she quickly backed away from me. I think she thought I was going to try something, but I could sense her power building at that moment. She didn't plan to go without a fight if I had been planning anything. The senpai smirked at that, hearing the admiration in the younger man's tone. Well, what was her name? Kiro looked up with a small pleasant smile gracing his lips. Hana Inuzuka. Chapter 7. Her rift forms. Asuma walked outside of the Uzumaki compound with Kushina, internally debating on what he would say to her. He knew that he needed to tell her, but how was he going to tell her? Should he be direct or beat around the bush? As they stood there, he let out a long sigh and looked at his redheaded girlfriend. Kushina-chan, there is something that I have to tell you. Looking over at him with a smile, it slowly faded away as she saw how serious his face was. What is it, Asuma-kun? Staring at her, he felt a wave of guilt overtake him, knowing that this was going to hurt her to hear. It's about Naruto. There is something that you should know. When I spoke to him about accepting the training as you requested, he said something that I think is going to hurt you to hear. Since he is your son, I want you to know, I don't want to keep something from you. I know that it is going to hurt you to hear though. Now Kushina had a serious look on her face, though there were clearly traces of panic and concern in her eyes. What was it, Asuma? Not wanting to prolong this any longer, he let out a breath he didn't know he was holding in. He said that he had reasons as to why he chose me. One was that he feels guilty that he is why men had stopped approaching and courting you. Another was that the Yondaine won't be able to scare me away from you, that his threats of intimidation mean very little to me. The most important thing though, the troubling part that is what he said after that. For a second, just a split second, he did what we always wanted him to do. He opened up to someone. Rubbing the back of his head, he looked into her eyes, seeing the small bit of hope there, and knowing that it was about to be extinguished, he said that he costs you more than he can ever give you. That he wants me to watch over you when the time comes, and he confronts Minato. The part that will really hurt you though is that he doesn't think he can ever be someone you will be proud of. He thinks the only way you will have a child you can be proud of is if we have one eventually. With wide eyes and in shock, Kushina just stood there, absorbing the words and information as her Sarutobi boyfriend told her. They both looked up at his windows as he sat there on his windowsill looking at them. He knew that Asuma would tell her before he left, and he knew that she would be hurt, if not devastated by this. He could see it in her eyes as she looked at him, the pain and betrayal she was feeling. It made him feel even worse for what he was doing to her. She was the one person he cared about in this world, but all he ever did was hurt her, it seemed. At the Inuzuka compound, when the brown-haired woman came back to her clan's compound, she immediately went to find her mother. Sure, her mom may be a pain. Actually, there was no doubt in her mind that her mother was a giant pain. After the events with that strange man earlier though, she needed some answers, and her mother was very intelligent, just frustrating. When she found her mother, she was sitting at the table drinking some water, a bored look on her face. "How was work, Hana?" Said woman sat down at the table with her mother and rubbed her hands. "Kasan, I have some questions for you." Soon put down the cup, then nodded her head at her daughter, showing that she was listening. Knowing that it was okay for her to continue, Hana asked her questions. "Well, this guy Kinda did some weird things. I wanted to know if you know anything about these Kinda things." That made it so that her eyebrow rose. "What Kinda things?" Hana sighed. "Well, he said I was giving off some sort of weird scent. Something along the lines of it was alluring to him." Narrowing her eyes, Tsum got really interested. "Really, someone who picked up on your scent like that?" The Inuzuka heiress nodded her head, then Tsum leaned back in her chair with a smirk. That was something that caught Hana's attention, something that honestly made her a bit fearful inside. "Why are you smirking like that?" The Inuzuka head smirk turned into a full-blown smile. "Someone picking up on your scent means your mate is here." Her eyes going wide at that revelation, Hana just screamed, "My what?" Starting to laugh at her daughter's reaction, Tsum revealed more information on the matter. "If someone picks up your scent like that, it means that said person was destined to be your mate." Shaking her head no, Hana quickly retorted back to her mother, "No, I can smell men all the time. If that was the way it was, then I am supposed to be mated to all of the men in Konohagakure." The Inuzuka matriarch shook her head with a sigh. "Not like that, you said he found it alluring. He probably said something along the lines that it was driving him crazy, right?" Nodding her head in agreement, Hana continued to listen as her mother spoke. "That is because he is locking onto your heat scent. Your next heat is what, a couple months away. Even when you do go into heat, not many can pick up your scent, just other Inuzukas. The only man who was ever able to do such a thing with me was your father, my mate." The heiress continued to just stare at her mother in disbelief, while Tsum smiled at her. Her mother then leaned forward with a knowing smirk. "He will come back eventually. He can't deny his urge to see you or be by you. I am sure he said that he would stay away from you, and he will try, but he will not be able to." Shaking her head no, Hana looked at her mother again. "I am pretty sure that he will stay away. He said he would since he figured out what the scent was." Not able to help but smirk at the comment, Tsum shook her head in the negative as well. "He won't be able to. It will draw him back to you." Hana squinted at her mother, then let out a long, annoyed sigh. Honestly, she wasn't very interested in seeing him again. He was extremely weird the first time that she met him. She rubbed her forehead with another long sigh, then stood and went to think on her own. In Minato's office, the Yondaime had just gotten out of a meeting with the council. They were putting more pressure on him to try and strengthen their military forces. He knew that there were two people out there that he could try and persuade to come home. One of them was his estranged sensei, a man who had all but abandoned him after giving Kushina that mission. The other was Tsunade, someone who hated the village and said that it stole everything and everyone she had ever loved from her. He knew that his sensei would never come home for him, maybe for Kushina, but never for him. Tsunade would also be a very difficult person to try and get to agree to come back to the village. There was also the fact that the third and final Sannin was also looking for Tsunade. Orochimaru wanted her expertise to help him with those kami-forsaken experiments. He wanted her help with grasping immortality as well. That was something that Minato was absolutely positive on. She was all but impossible to track, all but being the key part there. There was possibly one person that could track her down, but again that was his sensei. With a long sigh, Minato grabbed a piece of paper and wrote out a note for Jiraiya. In an ideal situation, he would be able to get them both to come back to the village. He may be able to get Tsunade back with an offer as head of the Konohagakure hospital. Also, if he told her that Kushina still lived here with a son, she may be more inclined to return, seeing as they were distant relatives. When Minato finished writing his note, he summoned a toad and sent it to Jiraiya. Though he and his sensei did not speak anymore, the toad would make it so that he would get the message basically instantaneously. But Jiraiya, the white-haired man, was sitting in a bar with an irritated look on his face. His latest lead on what Orochimaru was truly up to was a bust, again. He hadn't heard anything from either of his students lately either. From Kiro it was usual, but Darius was usually good about checking in. That was when suddenly a small toad appeared in front of him and extended its tongue to show a letter. Jiraiya rose his eyebrow at this, thinking that maybe it could be news from Darius. He took the letter before the toad dispelled. Jiraiya recognized a seal on the letter. It wasn't from Darius, that was the seal of the Yondaime. He almost didn't want to read the letter, but there were things there he needed to keep an eye on. With a groan he broke the seal and read what was there. Jiraiya-sensei, I know that we have drifted apart, but I have an urgent mission for you for Konohagakure. We need you to track down Tsunade-san and bring her home. The council wants her to become the head of Konohagakure Hospital. I know she has no interest in coming back here, so I thought that saying that Kushina and my bastard are here may persuade her otherwise. They also want you to come back, but I told them that was unlikely. If you would please do this for me, I would highly appreciate it. If you do, then I will never ask you for anything else. Thank you. Minato Namikaze, Yondaime Hokage. Leaning back in his chair again, Jiraiya looked at the letter for a moment, then pulled out his famous paper and pen. He wrote 2 different notes and then summoned 2 different toads. The first one went to the Yondaime saying, I will take care of it. The other was sent to the other toad summoner in Konohagakure. At the Uzumaki compound, Barya sat there with an irritated look while rubbing his temples, trying to massage away the migraine that was developing. Naruto was being a pain in the ass about convincing to train still. Kiro had been staring into space with a depressed look since this Hana Inuzuka woman told him to hit the trail. The only person in the house he could talk to was Kushina, who had her own life she was piecing back together with Asuma. With a long sigh he looked up to see a toad sitting there with a letter. He was assuming it was his chew out for not giving an update, but what was there to report other than the child was in enormous pain. Taking the letter from the toad, he read it before his eyes squinted at the letter with a groan and other irritation. Darius leaned back in the chair with a sigh as he rubbed his head before the front door opened and slammed shut. He opened his eyes and they darted towards the door to see a pissed-off-looking redhead heading up the stairs. The door opened again. This time it was the Sarutobi walking into the room and sat down next to him. The men looked at one another before Darius looked at the note, then back at Asuma. Hey, I need you to do me a favor. Request time for you team to take a training trip, about a month. You and Kushina will be staying in a town just outside of Konohagakure. Will I take the team on a mission I just received from Jiraiya-sensei? Might be the opportunity that we have been waiting for to convince Naruto to let us train him. Looking at the man with a bit of a suspicious look, Asuma responded, you realize if I do this he will know you two are here now. Even if I do leave you two out of it, then when they come back Naruto will throw you two under the bus. Darius nodded his head. I know, but I can't pass up this opportunity to convince Naruto to let us train him. The more time that goes by, the more it seems that he is not going to allow us to train him without a show of force. To be fair, that is what Kushina-sen recommended when we first got here. The man sighed and nodded his head. I will request it, but I make no guarantees. In case you did not know it, the Yondaime doesn't care for me since I am dating Kushina-chan. He nodded his head as he looked over at Kiro, who was sitting on the couch still. Asuma was staring at the stairs still while he wondered how things were going upstairs between the two Uzumakas. In Naruto's room, when Kushina arrived at the door, her anger was still at its highest and kicked open the door. The boy didn't even glance over in her direction. He was unfortunately expecting this. Kushina glared at him, then looked at the picture in front of him. It looked like a picture of when they were celebrating his 6th birthday. It was the last day he let someone take a picture of him smiling. She was in the picture with him with her arms around his neck and her chin resting on the top of his head. In the original picture they were both smiling at the camera. It looked as if he had taken one of his kunai to the picture and cut himself out of it. She looked at him as he finally looked over at her. I assume you're here to yell at me. Standing there silently for a moment before she started to tear up. The red-headed woman opened her arms towards him. Naruto. He looked at her for a moment, thinking that it wasn't the reaction that he had been expecting. Sliding off of windowsill, he continued to look at her as he walked over to her slowly. When he got closer though, her shoulder twitched and he got a hard smack across the face. The blonde teen stumbled a bit before he put his hand to his cheek, rubbing it as he looked at his mother. How dare you? The boy didn't reply to her angry comment. He didn't really have an answer for her to begin with anyways. She just shook a bit, but he wasn't able to tell if it was from anger or sadness. Kushina just looked at him through angry but tear-filled eyes. How could you think that, Naruto? Standing up straight, he rubbed his cheek some more before he responded to his mother. Because it's true, I know what I am and what I do to your life. Pulling her hand back as if she was going to smack him again, Kushina glared at him a bit, but seeing as he didn't move, so she slowly lowered her hand. He just stared at her with his blue eyes before he continued, I see how even your friends avoid you because of me. If I wasn't around, then maybe that Mikoto woman would still be around. You probably would have been remarried by now. You would have something to be proud of, someone to be proud of. I know I don't give you much. All I am is pent-up fury waiting to be released. Pulling him into a tight hug and holding her son close, Kushina had tears forming in her eyes. That isn't true, you were once always smiling and happy. I know you're not just anger. The teen wrapped his arms around his mother with a small sigh. Sorry to disappoint you further, but the son you remember died 6 years ago, Kasan. The only person that I have in my life that's important is you, but all I am is a disappointment and burden. Kushina separated from him and stared at him. How can I make you see differently? The boy stared at her for a moment. You can't, I don't see it happening at least. The redhead just stared at him with her violet eyes, and gave him a kind motherly smile. Tell me, sweetie. He stared at her then sighed again. If you have another child while I am still around and are the same with them as you're with me, I would maybe believe it. The bad thing is if the other is anything like me, then they will think you're holding out on life for them as well. I am tired of being what holds you back. If I could, I would confront him now so you would be free. Kushina felt her eyes start to tear up again as she looked at him. So after 6 years you want to leave me now? His eyes widened as his mother looked at him and then kissed his forehead. Good night, Naruto, sweet dreams. She looked at him then closed the door as he kept standing there with wide eyes for a moment. He didn't know what to say to that. He didn't know how to react to that. The only thing he was able to do was freeze apparently. When he snapped out of it, he hung his head and looked down to the ground. I'm sorry, Kasan. Chapter 8. Meeting again. To say the tensions had been high in the house since that night a week ago would be a drastic understatement. Luckily Asuma had gotten the approval for the month of training away from the village, though that did surprise Asuma, wondering if the yondaime had an ulterior motive. While the group was still in Konohagakure though, he never tried anything. According to Kiro, who was still assigned the mission to actively monitor him, he had been very absorbed in council meetings as of late. That was when Asuma had mentioned that Konohagakure was supposed to be hosting the upcoming Chunin exams. Naruto, Darius, Kiro and Kushina were currently all standing at the gate, awkwardly and silently. The two Uzumaki had barely spoken to one another since that night a week ago, making it extremely awkward for everyone else. The most concerning part was that it was also showing in Naruto's training, as he was being more destructive and using more Kyuubi chakra from his anger running more rampant. After about 5 more minutes passed, Asuma and Shikamaru came walking up talking until they got there. Asuma smiled at everyone, then gave Kushina a quick nonchalant peck on the lips. The Nara heir was looking at the new people who were standing with the group of people he already did know. Who are they? The two ninja just stared at the Nara heir until Kiro spoke. Who are you? The Nara heir rose his eyebrow at him. He went to respond, but that was when Naruto came running up. Hey everyone. Kiro, Darius, why are you here? Darius smiled at the girl. We are going to be taking you all with us for a month. Kushina and Asuma need some alone time away from all their stresses. The girl had a confused look. I thought you two were civilians. Kiro just stared at her. We never said that now, did we? She glared at him, then everyone turned and started their walk out of the gates of Konohagakure. It only took them about a half hour to get to the town that Kushina and Asuma would be staying at, while the team was off with Darius and Kiro. When they were going to separate the group, Naruto was looking at his mother who was talking to Darius. He closed his eyes and turned to leave her alone with a sigh, deciding that he needed to go and stock up on some extra supplies. Flashback: the day after Naruto and Kushina had their argument, he found his mother early that morning in the kitchen. As usual, she was in there making breakfast for everyone, something she seemed to enjoy doing. Naruto stared at her from the doorway. Kasan. She didn't stop making breakfast for everyone as he stood there. He wanted to talk to her and tried to apologize for the night before. When she didn't turn to face him, he just assumed that she was still upset with him. He looked down at the ground then spoke softly. I'm sorry. Naruto turned to leave the kitchen when she put down what she was cooking to look over her shoulder at him. Do you understand why I am upset with you, Naruto? The blonde boy just looked at her. Because I disappointed you again. His red-headed mother just shook her head and went back to making breakfast. So you don't get it after all. Looking at her, Naruto moved a step towards her hesitantly. What is it then? Sighing, she put down the spatula as she turned to face him, leaning against the counter as she stared at her son. He had a posture and look, one that she wasn't too used to seeing from him anymore. He was uncomfortable in her presence. She just gave him a look, then let out another sigh. You hurt me, Naruto. One of the most painful things I could have heard as a parent is that you think so low of me. You think that I can never be proud of you? I am already proud of you. The fact that you think the only way I can be proud of my child is to have another one hurt me more than you will ever know. Looking at her, she could see the regret in his eyes. That was until he looked at the ground once again and nodded his head. I understand, Kas, and I'm sorry. But that the blonde boy left the room, and the tensions only got worse from that point. The Uzumakas had barely spoke again. Kushina had internally hoped that explaining it to him would have helped repair the damage that was caused in their relationship. It had the reverse effect, since he knew how he had let her down. He had put more distance between them, not wanting to do something else to further her pain. As Naruto walked away, his mother was looking at his retreating back. Darius looked at Naruto, then back at her. Have you tried to speak to him again since then? The redhead just stared at her son, regret and shame hanging heavy in her voice. No, he avoids me as much as he can now. Darius gave her a small smile, trying to comfort the Uzumaki matriarch in some form. I can talk to him for you on this trip. Maybe help get that bridge started for you too. Shaking her head no, she looked back at the brown-haired man. I will deal with it when we get back to the village. He is my son and I will fix things between us. Nodding his head in understanding, if that is what you want Kushina-san, are you going to say goodbye to him before we leave? With another nod, the re-headed woman went off after him while Kiro came and stood by Darius, both of them watching as she walked away. You're pestering and inserting yourself into issues that don't concern you. Turning his attention over to Kiro, he couldn't help but nod in agreement. I know, but I want them to fix their problem. The boy is secluded enough, don't you think? Can you imagine how he would turn out without feeling a connection to anyone? To me that is just a surefire way to create a monster. The younger man gave him that. It wouldn't work out well at all. But there were more pressing things to discuss at the moment. I talked to Jiraiya-sensei's spy in this town, and they said Tsunade-sama isn't very far from here at a gambling town. Apparently she passed through here about a week or two ago. Darius looked at him then nodded. She is probably in Beto then. The Kohai nodded his head in agreement. That was what he had been thinking as well. Kiro looked at the older man. Senpai, would you be alright? I know that you're not a huge fan of Tsunade after everything. The nod was all that he got as an answer, making the Akami believe that he wouldn't actually be okay. Thinking it was best to hold his tongue, he looked over at Asuma, who was telling his other two students to obey them. Darius, trying to keep his mind focused and not in the past, was wondering how Kushina and Naruto were doing. But Naruto and Kushina, while exiting the shop that he bought the extra supplies that he was currently putting them in his bag. Looking up as he exited the shop, he saw Kushina standing there waiting for him, making him freeze. The fact that he froze making Kushina's eyes flinch a bit. He had never had that reaction with her. She was always the one he found some comfort in. He looked at her but didn't say anything, so she came over to him and gave him a hug. Be careful out there, Naruto. He didn't say anything, but he did slowly put his arms around her to hug his mother back. The red-headed woman tightened her grip on him, then released him. He released her at the same time and looked at her, his posture still showing how uncomfortable he felt. Kushina just looked at him, then kissed his forehead. When you come home we will fix this, okay Naruto? The blonde-haired boy nodded his head at her as he looked at her. Kushina stood and gave him a kind motherly smile, hoping that it would give him some sort of reassurance. He finally spoke up when she turned to leave. I hope you have fun with Asuma-sensei, looking over her shoulder and smiled at him before nodding her head at him. He finished putting his supplies in his bag before he headed back to the group. Everyone said goodbye before the five left Kushina and Asuma in the town, while heading towards where they thought Tsunade was more that likely at. Then Beto, an older blonde woman, was sitting at a gambling table with a saucer of sake in her hand. She was doing poorly at the tables, as she always did, when her assistant showed up. Tsunade-sama, I think that you should quit. The woman, now known to be Tsunade, just looked at her helper with a drunken smile. I am fine. I am just about to go on a heater. I can feel it. Just you wait and see. Her assistant sighed while the other players were ecstatic. She was easier to beat than anyone they ever played against. Suddenly though they felt a familiar chakra wash over their senses. Tsunade-sama, the once apparently drunken woman, had sobered up as she felt it as well. She glared at the door as it slowly slid open, showing someone she hadn't wanted to see again. There stood a pale man with long black hair. Tsunade, long time no see. Said woman just glared. Orochimaru, what do you want? The snake Sanin gave his estranged teammate a smile. Now, that is no way to say hello, princess. I just wanted to see if you have any interest in a proposition I have for you. Scoffing at the comment, she focused her attention back on her gambling, before the missing nin threw kunai into the other players' heads. Her eyes glared over at him again as he came and sat down by her. As I was saying, I have a proposition. Sitting there with an clearly irritated and upset look on her face, she waited for her old teammate to tell her whatever it was, that way she could just refuse him outright. He smiled at her though. If you help me with my formula for my experiments, then I will give you back Dan and Milwaukee. That made both of the women in the room look at him with wide eyes. Tsunade stared at him. That's impossible. Orochimaru smiled at her. I have recently mastered a jutsu that can revive the dead. It was created by your granduncle. Narrowing her eyes, Shizune connected the dots together quickly, and realized the jutsu of which he spoke. That isn't bringing them back to life, that is forcing their soul into a shell. The man looked at her, then at Tsunade. You still keep Dan's little niece around, huh? You are just so sentimental when you want to be. Smirking at his own comment, he eyed Tsunade, waiting for an answer from her. She looked at him, then waved him away. I will think about it. The snake Sanin nodded his head before looking at her. I will be back in a few days to get your answer then, Tsunade. I hope that you don't let me down. The man left, leaving Tsunade sitting there looking at the table. Shizune was standing behind her with a concerned look. Tsunade-sama, you know it's not the same. The woman didn't say anything, making Shizune worry even more about her master. If something didn't happen, she worried that she and her master would be helping Orochimaru here rather soon, an idea that she did not cherish. After all, he was a man who was more likely to try and kill them after he got what he wanted than follow through with his end of the bargain. Though, even if he followed through, it is not as if it would be the same as when they were alive. Outside Beto, the Konohagakure team, plus the two they were with, landed outside the village, and three of them stretched while two panted a bit. Naruto, Darius and Kuro all looked at the other two with a disappointed look. Kuro looking over at Darius with an annoyed look. Did we really have to bring them along? But an annoyed look. Darius nodded his head as well. Yes, for the 1000th time, yes. Now, let's get going already. We know that she will be difficult to convince, so we will probably be here for a while. Everyone nodded, though Kuro was muttering about people being sensitive, then headed into the town. It didn't take too long for Kuro to track them down by their scents, which lead the group to a restaurant. The five approached the table with Darius leading the group before he bowed as they got to them. Tsunade-sama, it's been a while. Skeptically raising her eyebrow, the blonde slug Sanin saw that it was when Darius as the man stood back up straight. Aren't you Jiraiya's brat? Smiling and nodding in the affirmative, Darius responded, then turned his attention to the black-haired woman next to her. Yes ma'am. Hello again, Shizune-chan. The black-haired woman looked at him in disbelief, almost unable to recognize the man. Dark-hun. Smiling at her as she used her old nickname for him, Darius just looked at her, taking in her stunning imagery. Tsunade looked at the others in the group, then back over at Darius. Who is your entourage, and where is your pervert of a sensei? Already peeping at the hot springs. Giving her a courteous smile, he shook his head. No, Jiraiya-sensei is not here. He sent Kuro and I to do this mission for him. The tall one is Kuro, Jiraiya-sensei's other pupil. The kids are a Konohagakure team we are helping train, one of Naruto Uzumaki and his teammates Shikamaru Nara and Naruto Namikaze. Tsunade looked straight at Naruto. Naruto, huh? Who are your parents? Shooting a glance at Naruto for a moment, Naruto's eyes landed back on Tsunade. My mother is Kushina Uzumaki, and I am a bastard. I don't have a father. Tsunade hadn't missed the way he looked at Naruto. She had heard the rumors about Minato, and just looking at Naruto confirmed them. Tsunade shook her head then sighed. What do you want, Perv Jr.? Giving a fake hurt gasp, Darius put his hand over his heart. Tsunade-sama, I am hurt you would think so poorly of me. Said woman just rolled her eyes. You have spent your whole life with Jiraiya. You can see why I am skeptical. Hearing a snickering behind him, Darius looked over his shoulder to see Kuro laughing. What are you snickering about? You have been with him for all but 4 years of your life. After reprimanding Kuro, Darius turned his attention back towards Tsunade. We were sent to try and convince you to come back to Konohagakure. They want you and Shizune-chan to come take lead of the hospital. I think that it is more a show of power that they have a Sanin in the village personally, but that is just my speculation. Tsunade rolled her eyes again. They have 2 pupils of Jiraiya, as well as having Minato. Isn't that enough power? Pulling out a chair for him to sit on, Darius looked at her. They do not know about Kuro, and I yet. We expect that to change soon though. Looking over his shoulders at his sibling disciple, Darius looked at the kids then at Kuro. Kuro, get the kids some food while I speak with them. Said man nodded before ushering the kids away, as Darius continued to watch them walk away. When they were far enough away to be out of the range of heightened senses, he sighed. What will it take to get you to come back, Tsunade-sama? As Darius' demeanor changed to a more serious approach, so did hers. Give me my loved ones back. The pained look crossed his face as he looked at the older woman with saddened eyes. We are sorry for your loss. Truly we are, but there are still people there that you care about. Kushina Uzumaki has been there the whole time, living a secluded and scored life with Naruto. Tsunade closed her eyes as she took a sip of her sake. Opening them, she looked at where the kids had walked off to with Kuro. He is Minato's right. Nodding his head yes, Tsunade looked over at Naruto as he waited for his food, then at Darius. You said the Kushina is secluded. Why? She always wanted a child, so I don't understand that one. Darius ordered himself a water to drink, then looked back at Tsunade. Naruto doesn't get along with people, and Kushina's love for him cost her a friend once. He avoids social interactions now due to that. Now, Kushina secluded herself as well, even cutting out a lot of her one-time friends, because she believes it is in his best interest. In her defense, though, she does a boyfriend now, Asuma Sarutobi, and that seems to be going rather well for them. The blonde Sanin nodded her head before looking over at Naruto again. Does anyone know who his father is? Letting out a sad sigh, Darius shook his head. No. Well, there are rumors, but no one believes the great fourth Hokage could do something like that. Most just believe her to be a slut that spread her legs too many times and got pregnant. A few know the truth though, the Sarutobi among them, but not enough people to really make a difference in the village. The bit amused by the small growl that emanated from Tsunade, he took a drink of his water. They obviously don't know Kushina. Nodding his head in total agreement, he swallowed the water and responded, Kushina is hoping you will come back as well, to be honest. She is hoping that you would be someone that Naruto would be able to grow close to. I understand that you have a lot of painful memories there, but maybe you could create good ones as well, even enough to outweigh the bad. The slug san and stared at him then sighed. I will consider it as well as the other offer that I have right now. That caught his attention. What other offer? Did someone else approach Tsunade-sama? She didn't respond, knowing that as Jiraiya's apprentice he wouldn't approve. Since she wasn't willing to respond to the question though, Shizune did. Orochimaru offered to use a reincarnation jutsu to bring the Waki and my uncle back, if we help him with his experiments. Flicking his eyes back over to Tsunade, he quickly spoke up. Tsunade-sama, you know you can't trust the snake. You know that it wouldn't be real. Her anger flared as she brought a chakra-fueled fist down through the table, shattering it into a million pieces. Shut up. You don't know what it's like to lose the ones you love. An angry, serious expression overtook the normally calm, or annoyed depending on Kiro, demeanor of the man. You forget who you are speaking to, Tsunade-sama. Both Kiro and I are orphaned. To add insult to injury, you took the only other person I cared about away from me. I will leave you to weigh your options for a few days. Storming away from the table, he told the others it was time to go, though Kiro protested, saying he just got his food. The look he received from his senpai was all he needed to know to be quiet. As he quickly left the restaurant with the other four ninja quickly fell into tow behind him. Tsunade slumped back in the chair with a long drawn-out sigh. Her assistant was glaring at her for her outburst, knowing that it wasn't befitting of someone of her status. Tsunade gave a look over to Shizune and saw the look she was giving her. Sorry for pissing off your boyfriend. That made it so the assistant's face turned beet red as she only glared harder at the comment. He hasn't been my boyfriend since the day we left the village. Since then we haven't so much as communicated once, not even a word due to both of our travels. Tsunade again sighed as she leaned her head down on her hand as she considered what it was she was going to do. She looked at her food, help the snake and probably get the trade or go back to my own personal hell. What great choices I have to choose from. Chapter 9. Taunting from a snake. After a few days had passed, both groups of shinobi came to find Tsunade. Both sides that had offered her a deal showed up at the same time naturally. Orochimaru had not come alone this time though, bringing Kabuto and some pawns too, just in case she refused had the gall to refuse him. If she dared to do so, he would just take her by force and make her help him. How he would force her he wasn't sure yet, but he would be able to figure out the details for that later. First would be the issue to taking and subduing her. The other side was thinking that she was going to refuse them, knowing that she really had no interest in returning to Konohagakure. If that was the case, then they would contact Jiraiya and let her be his problem, something Kiro had been saying from the jump. Darius seemed a bit irritated with Tsunade after their discussion, only confiding in Kiro what had been said. Of course Kiro had felt bad for his senpai, both were orphaned, and Darius had found someone to treasure in Shizune when they were younger. Unfortunately, shortly after the Second Shinobi War they were separated when Tsunade left the village with her in tow. That had of course formed some feelings of resentment between Darius and Tsunade, something that he thought he had a better grip on. Darius had been orphaned in a spat between Sunagakure and Konohagakure, living in a small village by the border. A lot of the citizens of that village lost their lives in it and left scars on the survivors. Darius was not immune, though his scars were psychological and not physical. When Jiraiya arrived after the fight had long since ended, he was attacked by the dark brown-haired boy with a kunai he had found. Jiraiya, seeing all the pain and hatred in his eyes from what he had seen and endured, took the boy under his tutelage. From the time Jiraiya had taken the boy as his only pupil, though Darius often felt as more of a babysitter for Jiraiya. That was until they found Kiro a couple years after the Third Ninja War. The brown-haired boy was in a destroyed village, similar to how Darius had been, and had been living off of thievery. He had somehow stolen Jiraiya's coin purse, making them look for him, all the while Darius suspecting he spent his money at a brothel. That was until they ended up finding the young Akami boy. That had become abundantly clear that the Great Toad Sage had a weak spot for orphans, and ended up taking Kiro as a student as well. Darius, who had never fully recovered from his separation from Shizune, being a bit distant about it at first, slowly opened up to Kiro. Though Kiro had always assumed that Darius blamed Tsunade for it, but he kept it bottled up and contained, oddly enough something that Darius always told him not to do. When they arrived at the spot that Tsunade had told them all to meet at, the Konohagakure group who knew who he was, were more than a little surprised to see Orochimaru and his team. Kiro started to growl, while Darius put his hand up to signal him to stay there, though to stay alert. Orochimaru was just smiling at him, his usual arrogance coming through. Look what we have here, a tadpole and a pup. Glaring at the man, Darius shot back with his own comment, says the traitorous belly slider. Laughing as he looked at the Konohagakure team, he playfully looked back to Tsunade. So Konohagakure was the other place that offered you a deal. I am surprised that you would even consider a deal from them, princess. The blonde Sanin looked at both groups. I am here to deny both of your offers. I will not help you with your abominations, and I will not return to that Kami Forsaken village either. That is my final decision for both of you. Now I need you both to leave me in peace. Nodding his head at her, Darius turned, accepting her decision for what it was. He would just relay it to Jiraiya and let him deal with it. Orochimaru on the other hand seemed to have taken a serious issue with said decision. His once playful look on his face now become one of outrage and anger while staring at her. "You refuse me. I give you an exceptionally kind offer and you refuse. That is unacceptable, Tsunade." The snake Sannin looked at his pawns then back at Tsunade. "Take her by force." Now. They nodded and went to move as Darius looked at Kiro, the elder man nodding at the other. Both of them flashed and stood between both of the groups. They removed their bags and tossed them to the side as Orochimaru started to laugh. "The pupils are going to fight us. You two may be able to get through them, but Kabuto and I will be more than a match for the both of you." Darius smirked. "We shall see, Naruto. You and your team are responsible for the 2 pawns. Deal with them quickly and safely. Your mother would murder me if something happened to you." Said blonde boy smiled then took off his bag. Naruto wore a matching smile while removing her bag as well. The only one of the 3 that didn't smile was of course Shikamaru, who took off his bag with an annoyed look. "Troublesome, we can never have a mission without a fight." The younger brown-haired man looked at his senior pupil. "Who do I get, senpai?" Darius looked at the 2 and smirked. "I get the snake." Giro smiled as he cracked his neck. "That means I get the little rat." Team 13 versus Orochimaru's henchmen. Naruto and his teammates stood there looking at the 2 henchmen that they were supposed to fight. The blonde Jinchuriki sighed then issued the orders for his teammates. "I will take the one on the right. He has more chakra. You two can deal with the other one." Both Shikamaru and Naruto nodded before Naruto flashed at his target, delivering a hard kick into his side, forcing him away from his teammate. As soon as his foot touched down, Naruto flashed at his opponent again, making the man quickly go into a defensive stance. He put his hands up to block the punch coming from Naruto. As Naruto's fist was coming in, the henchman countered him, grabbing his forearm and throwing him at a wall. Turning his body, Naruto stuck to the wall with chakra before looking up and flashing at the man again. Shikamaru went through his hand signs quickly, then sent his shadow after the henchman, while Naruto ran at him with a kunai drawn. The henchman smiled as Naruto got close, then flashed through his own signs and smirked. "I will deal with the shadow user first." The man was gone in a flash, then appeared next to Shikamaru, punching him hard in the cheek, making the Nara air go skidding towards Tsunade and Shizune. Naruto looked behind her to see Shikamaru on the ground, then threw a kunai at the man. Easily evading the throw, the man just looked back at her. "To think they would have me or Jen and fight me. I was a bit worried about fighting those 2, but this is just insulting. At least send me a challenge." Narrowing her eyes at the blatant insult, Naruto started weaving through hand signs. Fire style. Fireball jutsu. The blonde girl blew out a fireball directed at the man, then flashed behind it. As the henchman dodged the fireball, but as he moved out of the way was greeted by her kneecap, making her smile. As she stood there confidently, she looked at him and proudly exclaimed, "Do not underestimate us. We are the top genin team in Konohagakure. I am the daughter of the Yondaime Hokage and pupil of Kushina Uzumaki." The man stood up and laughed, spitting out a small bit of blood. "The princess of Konohagakure, huh? I will have fun holding you for ransom." The teen just glared at the man, then looked over at Shikamaru as he pushed himself off the ground, shaking off the blow to his cheek. She then looked back at Naruto, who was in a fierce Taijutsu match with his opponent. She was on her own for the moment. Naruto broke from his lock with the man, then glared at him. Continuing to glare at him, he jumped backwards, going through hand signs in air, wind style. Gale palm. As he landed on solid ground, his jutsu initiated and the wind came, pushing the man back. Naruto followed behind his jutsu closely, then connecting with a hard shot to the man's chin. His attack wasn't done though, as he went into the air again, weaving through more hand signs, lightning style. Nervous system shock. As he came down, he put his hands on the man, and the jutsu passed through his body. He visibly locked up, making Naruto smile. The boy stood, a confident smirk on his face as he looked down at the paralyzed man, then pulled out a kunai. Tsunade had been watching the boy with interest, her eyes widening as he pulled out a kunai. "What are you doing, Naruto? You already bested him." The boy didn't listen, then slashed through the man's throat, and followed through by throwing the kunai into the man's skull, just for good measure. He stared down at the body for a moment, then looked over at her with an irritated but pained look on his face. "Shut up, old woman. What I do is of no concern to you." Tsunade just looked at him in shock. That was until her anger kicked in. "You little brat, did you just call me old?" He ignored her, then looked over at his teammates in time to see Shikamaru take a kick to the face. The genin tried to push himself off of the ground but fell back in pain. Naruto went to flash at the man, but he caught her by the throat and slammed her down into the ground, a gasp escaping her as the air left her lungs. The henchman just smiled. "You know, I expected more from the princess of Konohagakure. Maybe I should just kill you, no dot." Suddenly, there was a blonde blur before a grunt, as Naruto sent the sole of his foot into the man's nose. Naruto stood over Naruto as he looked at the henchman with an angry look. The man got up from the ground, while fixing his clearly broken nose, to see Naruto standing there. His eyes scanned over to where he had last seen the blonde boy to see his partner dead. The scoffing sound escaped him, then his eyes came back to Naruto. Interesting, a genin with skill. Naruto just stared at him, only I get to mock the princess. The blonde teen boy went through hand signs, then let out a breath as clouds suddenly formed over them. He opened his eyes and glared at his new opponent, then charged, tackling him to the ground before a lightning bolt came crashing down on them. The conscious ones in the area looked on in shock. What were the odds that a lightning bolt would randomly came down right on top of them? None of them realizing that he had brought it down on top of them deliberately. After a minute or so, Naruto stood up from the crater and looked at them, his shirt torn to shreds from the impact of the lightning bolt. Shizune and Naruto looked at him in shock as Tsunade pieced it together and muttered, "The Storm Bloodline, Kuro versus Kabuto." The two stood there staring at one another before Kuro hit summoning markers on his belt and grabbed two hand blades. The design made it so that metal went halfway up his forearm with articulated wrists. At the hand was a blade that encased the hand but pointed at the tip, each blade having a straight and serrated side for different types of cutting. The Ukami looked at Kabuto, who was pulling out some kunai. "You're going to get your ass kicked, punk." Kabuto smirked as he looked at Kuro. "I think that it is the other way around, puppy." The brown-haired man smirked and flashed at Kabuto. The medic put up his kunai to block the hand blades in just the nick of time. As the sparks flew, Kabuto transitioned to try and kick Kuro in the stomach, but he sidestepped, then countered with his own kick into Kabuto's side. As the white-haired man went flying, Kuro stood up straight, smirking as he taunted the white-haired medic. "You're nothing, not even a warm-up." Kabuto got up and threw the kunai at Kuro, who easily deflected it. As he did so, Kabuto shot through his hand signs. Kuro looked up just in time to see the man finish his hand signs, chakra scalpel. The white-haired medic charged, then brought his hands down. As Kuro went to block the attack, the chakra cut through the cold steel of his hand blades. Kuro jumping back as the tips of his blades pierced the dirt. As he landed, Kuro looked at the blade tips that were sticking up from the ground and sighed. "Well, that sucks, those cost a lot to make." Looking up, he saw Kabuto standing there with a smile. "I am so sorry, pup." Kuro growled as he tossed the now useless hand pieces to the sides of him. "I do not like being called pup or puppy." Shrugging at him, Kabuto got into his stance again as Kuro glared at him even more fiercely. The white-haired medic held his smirk, then moved his hands. "Bring it on, pup." Darius versus Orochimaru. The snake Sannin smiled at Darius. "So confident, aren't we, Darius? You really think you have the ability to go toe-to-toe with me? Even your idiot sensei has never succeeded in that." The brown-haired man just stared at him, then replied with a shrug. "Honestly, I doubt that I can, but we'll never know till I try. Besides, even if I die, it's worth a shot just to keep you from having your way." The snake Sannin laughed, then went through his hand signs, summoning jutsu. Suddenly there was a large snake under Orochimaru's feet as he looked down at Darius. Darius looked at him, then went through his own hand signs, summoning jutsu. Now Darius was eye level with Orochimaru again as he stood on top of Gamabunta's head. The chief toad looked up at Darius. "Darius, why am I here?" The man smiled. "Hey chief, I got something I need your help with." The chief toad looked at the snake and Orochimaru. The chief narrowed his eyes and pulled out his blade with a smile as he recognized Orochimaru, with pleasure. Darius smiled, then the chief flew at the snake, thrusting his blade into the snake, through its neck. Darius jumped off of the toad's head and onto the snake, rushing at Orochimaru. The man drew back, then opened his hand, forming a Rasengan effortlessly. He thrust his hand forward, trying to push the Rasengan into the man's stomach, but the snake jumped back off of the summon. The brown-haired man quickly jumped off after him, the summon disappearing in a puff of white from the injury caused to him by Gamabunta. When they both touched down, Orochimaru smirked at him. "I guess it's not a surprise that Jiraiya would teach you that jutsu." Smirking, Darius weaved through some different hand signs, water style. Severing wave. The man converted the chakra in his stomach, then blew out a high-pressure stream. Orochimaru felt confident that he would be able to brush it off like nothing, not believing the man to be his equal. As the jutsu connected, Orochimaru went flying backwards though. The Sannin looked down to see blood starting to come down his arm from where he blocked. Darius stood there looking at the snake Sannin as the man looked at his arm. "I will admit, you're stronger than I gave you credit for." Continuing to stare at the man, Darius responded, "You shouldn't underestimate someone, Orochimaru. It could lead to your demise." The snake Sannin smiled, then let out a dark laugh. "You think you will be the one to bring my demise?" Darius shook his head. "No, I think I may be able to prevent your plans today though." Orochimaru smirked as he got ready to attack Darius once again. Kuro versus Kabuto. Both men stood there panting as they stared at one another. The two had both clearly underestimated the other one. Kuro took a calming breath, then flashed again, connecting with a hard punch to Kabuto's cheek. The white-haired medic went rolling on the ground, not getting up right away. Kuro straightened himself out while taking another breath. "I said not to call me pup, jackass." The brown-haired man watched as Kabuto tried to push himself off of the ground but fell back down. Kuro then looked over at Darius, who was engaged with Orochimaru before he felt a sharp pain in his shoulder. He looked to see a senbon now lodged in it. He pulled it out, then saw some liquid on the tip, and curled his lip at the smell of it. He looked at Kabuto, then felt his vision blurring. Shit. Hiro collapsed to one knee as he tried to look up at Kabuto. Though his world was spinning, he knew the man was smiling. Poison works well on pups like you. The man growled, then pushed his body up. Takes more than that, asshole. He was about to charge at Kabuto when he saw Darius go flying. He looked to see Orochimaru rushing at him with a kunai drawn back. Kiro pushed all his remaining chakra into his feet and flashed in front of Orochimaru, getting stabbed in the stomach as a result. The man's eyes widened as he grabbed Orochimaru's forearm tightly, coughing up blood as he did. Darius opened his eyes just in time to see the incident, then something inside of him snapped. The older man flashed and opened his hand, forming a large Rasengan, and slammed it into Orochimaru, making him go flying. As Orochimaru flew away, Kiro fell to his knees and coughed up some more blood as his face started to pale. Darius pulled out the kunai. Having Kiro lie down, he started to put pressure on the wound. Shizune-chan. Help. The black-haired medic ran over to him, then quickly went to work on trying to heal the younger man. That was when Kabuto tried to make his move and ran at Shizune's back. As he drew back his chakra scalpel, Darius flashed and caught his arm, just taking a small hit to his shoulder. Though due to the chakra that was flowing through Kabuto's hand, it did dislocate at his shoulder. Darius grunted, then the man disappeared and reappeared by Orochimaru, who was bleeding and panting, clearly injured. The white-haired medic looked at everyone, then Tsunade. We will be back for you, Tsunade. But that they disappeared and Darius clutched his shoulder in pain. He looked back at Shizune as she healed Kiro's stomach. The brown-haired man was looking at his senpai, Hewi-1. Darius shook his head, then knelt down by his kohai, watching as the black-haired medic healed him. That was when he heard Tsunade coming over to them. Why did you two interfere? He looked at the San and then back at Kiro. Because you matter to our sensei. It was our mission to get you to Konohagakure. You refused, so you can be his problem now. Still, he wouldn't have forgiven us if we let that slimy bastard spirit you and Shizune-chan away like he had planned to do. Tsunade stared at him, then looked over at Naruto as the boy and his team came over to them. Naruto is an interesting boy, quite angry though. The man nodded his head, but never looked away from the medical procedure happening in front of him. He has had a lot on his plate. Recently he suffered an emotional tear in his relationship with his mother as well. That is making him more brutal, it seems. The blonde Sanin nodded, then looked at the genin again as they were getting closer to them. I will go back. I need to monitor him and Kushina. Darius nodded his head but still didn't look at her. When Shizune's hand stopped glowing, she pulled out a needle and thread and stitched together the wound and wrapped him. Kiro smirked at Darius. Your girlfriend is getting all handsy with me, senpai. They glared at him, though a bit relieved internally that he was still his smart-ass elf. That was all before Kiro's eyes rolled back and his head fell back though. Everyone panicked, then Tsunade moved his shirt some more and saw the tiny puncture wound from the senbon. She could tell by the darkening veins that the senbon had been laced with poison. That was when the Sanin stepped in and proceeded to counter the poison that was in Kiro's body. Darius looked on with concern, then spoke to Kiro. You can't die yet, Kiro. You have to pester that Hana woman some more, you know. As the genin stood there, Naruto looked at the other blonde on the team. She was looking at him with a blush since he had defended her. He had even spoken to that man in a possessive tone and said only he could mock her. Naruto inched closer to Naruto as the male team watched a medical ninja try to save the man in front of them. They did eventually notice Naruto was extremely close to him though and looked at her. What do you want, Naruto? Smiling at him, she proceeded to wrap her arms around his arm and laid her head on his shoulder. The boy looked at her in confusion as he went to pull away, but she wouldn't let him. He glared at her. Let go, princess. She looked at him and smiled. Why? Scared you might like it. Naruto just stared at her, then looked back at Kiro. Why would I ever be scared of you? The girl smirked, then leaned in, whispering huskily into his ear. Because I am a girl. You're uncomfortable around girls. He shivered a bit before he looked at her. That is not true. Naruto smiled some more. Then how come you always point out when I am heated to get me away from you? Naruto pulled his head back from her. You're way off there. I just point out that you are. Smirking, she released him. You'll figure it out eventually. But that she walked over closer to the others to see if she could help. As she walked away, he noticed that the way she was walking away, she was putting extra sway in her hips. For a moment he was staring at her ass, but then snapped out of it. She is your half-sister, damn it. Stop doing that. Soon after, Tsunade stood and looked at Darius. He is fine. He just needs about a week to completely heal. We can stay in this town for the time being. Darius nodded his head. Okay. We told Asuma and Kushina that we would be back in about 2 weeks, then stay there a week as well. That being said, staying here for another week actually works into our time frame very well. Nodding her head at the agreement, Tsunade then turned to leave, as Darius made some clones to carry Kiro carefully. The real Darius looked at Shizune, giving her a small smile. Thank you, Shizune-chan. Said woman smiled before she noticed how he was favoring his one shoulder. She walked over and started to heal him. Since it was a simple dislocation, it took nothing at all for someone of her caliber. Darius was just staring at her as she healed him with a smile. Still, all these years, and you still have to heal up my wounds. Shizune smiled as she briefly made eye contact with him. I don't mind, I never did. Darius just continued to smile at her, then felt his shoulder basically healed. Shizune smiled at him, then kissed his shoulder, making him look at her. It's a medical secret, but if you kiss it, then it will feel better. She gave him a wink, then walked off as well, making him stand there with a small blush and smile. Thank you, Shizune-chan. What if Naruto and his sister arranged marriage? Thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel, and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down, and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.